Whoa, I'm back. I'm back. Welcome back, everybody, ladies and gents. It's amazing to be back here. I'm not sure how long it's going to last, but hey, chat, come on in. Come on, get on over here. Let's hang out for a little while and let's see what's happening with all of you guys. I love seeing so many likes before I even get on the on the live broadcast, but hey, love it. Thank you so much. And if you haven't yet, hit that like button. It helps out a ton. And yeah, we're gonna get ourselves back into the algorithmic goodies. A little slow start this week. Holy cow, the jet lag has been just killing me. But you know, doing what we can in the meantime. You know, work's been a struggle, and then getting back into the whole swing of things has been a struggle. But we're gonna get back into things, and got a lot of good stuff coming up. Actually, lots of great stuff coming up, and I want to extend this one out there to anybody out there who's eager to go to some of these meet and greets or even bigger events, because there is a big event coming up in the end of June. And if you haven't really set your schedule yet, I think now's the time to have a look at that, have a look at your calendar, and then see if you have some time free, time to travel, time to get on a ferry, or maybe you're already on the island, time to go to Victoria. And this is, of course, this event, Reclaiming Canada conference. This is by We Unify. I guess there's been some confusion between other groups with Unify in the name. This is completely uncorroborated with anybody else. We Unify, yeah, absolutely bang up job. A lot of great people in the works behind this, and some really big names. I don't know who I could say is definitely coming. I know Dr. Peter McCullough is going to be there. I know the two Laurens will be there. We got Lauren Southern as well as Lauren Chen. I got to actually meet some of these people in the organization putting this stuff together, and I think it's fantastic. Knowing that so many good people are going to be coming to this event. So, like I said, if you haven't booked anything yet for this weekend, put this aside, because this is going to be a heck of a show. I'm really looking forward to it. Donald Sutherland too. I don't know if Donald Sutherland's going to be there. I know that this is going to be a big one. This is going to be really something else. I don't know how much info they have up there. Yeah, here we go. We got Dr. Drew, who I got to meet yesterday as well. Dr. Peter McCullough. Big list of names, some familiar, maybe some less familiar. John Carpe, I was just talking with him yesterday, gonna have him on the show. We're gonna be talking about that harms bill that's coming up. Hey, there's me on the show, the thing. So more names to come. Check it out. Make sure that you guys all have the link to this. I'll put it in the chat here, as well as I'm going to be putting it in a lot of the videos coming up, leading up to the event, because looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and if you can make it out there, it's going to be a great event. But hey, I digress. I wanted to pump that one out there right out of the gates, because it's something that I'm really looking forward to. You get invited to something like this, it just really it motivates you to want to get more people involved. And this is what I'm doing. Rumble channel, that's actually one of the things we're gonna be talking about at the event. The different avenues for bringing this kind of information out to people. I tend to focus on the YouTube and the mainstream things. I had a Rumble channel. It largely got ignored. So who knows? That might be an avenue worth seeking down the road. But no, not at this moment. It looks fantastic, Clyde. Thank you, Cindy. That's amazing. I am so looking forward to this. It's been in the works for a little bit, and I'm excited. I'm really excited to be there and to meet a whole bunch of people, because that's what this is all about. And it's funny because it's this massive event that's going to be happening in Canada's wokest city. I mean, this is going to get a lot of attention. absolutely going to get a lot of attention. And who knows what you might see happening at this event. But I hope to see lots of good conversations, lots of good debates, and just good people all around. Hello, welcome home. Well, thank you, Linda. I really appreciate that. I don't know how long this will be my home. As maybe you haven't heard. For those that haven't heard, this might be a temporary thing it is a temporary thing at the moment. So my family, we got the news that we have to move out of our rental house. We live in a townhouse. And it's no longer going to be available to us. We have until the end of May. We're given the absolute shortest possible notice legally to do that after 10 years of renting. What a great gift to be given. Nonetheless, that's the case. We found something to tie us through summer, which is going to be really small, really cramped, and it might be challenging even for doing content. But we'll see. We'll see how this goes. Might have to get creative, to say the least. We might have to get a little bit creative. So that's something I'm working on, and it's going to make things difficult, but it's still going to be a big thing. And then the family has to figure out what we're going to be doing come the fall. We're looking at different places and getting in touch with different people in different areas. But right now we're looking at both Florida and we're looking at Texas. I know a lot of people are in Alberta are saying, come to Alberta. If we have to pack up our whole lives and we have to move and we have to make all new acquaintances, all new friends, all new neighbors, a whole new life for ourselves. One of the things I want to do moving forward in my career is these are some of the things that I thought about for a long time, actually. If I had to stop and pull wrenches somewhere else, which is my day job, and this is what I do all the time, it would be nice to get out of the Rust Belt. It would really, really be nice to get out of the Rust Belt, and also not to have to break my knuckles on cold metal any longer. And it'd be interesting to go work in Texas or Florida. Not sure yet. We're gonna go check out some different things moving forward. But don't think for 1 second that I'm not going to be talking about Canadian politics anymore. This is still my passion. This is something that I want to talk about and I want to see through. So, I might actually start incorporating some of the American stuff that's going on as well as what's happening in Canada. I want to use this opportunity as a springboard into bringing the Canadian story to an American audience as well, because a lot of Americans don't know exactly what's happening in the country that shares the longest border with them, which is incredible. So I think they ought to know what's happening north of them, and I think I could take this as a perfect opportunity to do exactly that. A lot of people with different opinions. Those would be my options too, Texas and Florida. Yeah, Utaka. That's exactly it. What do we say? Justin has spare rooms, but I don't recommend the rent. Yeah, the price is too. I don't. Yeah, okay. Interesting one. Viva Fry made it work. Yeah, Viva is one of the people that I'm getting in touch with to get some advice about some of the ins and outs of this stuff. Yeah, Florida. People a little nicer in Texas for some reason. It's a thing. And I keep getting told, because Austin's an option for us as well. But I get a lot of people saying, "Oh, it's like, don't go anywhere but Austin. It's full of libtards." But that's another part about this whole thing is I want to bring this information to people, and I don't want to just go be in an echo chamber. Like, I'm sure it'd be great to just go live around, not Austin. Yeah, a lot of people saying that. I'm gonna find myself traveling to Austin quite a bit because of what I'm thinking about doing. I want to bring these ideas to the American left. Actually, I think the American left need to wake up. The Canadian left obviously need to wake up, and they largely a lot of people have been waking up because of poverty onset. People not being able to afford their homes, the price of food going up. A lot of people who used to lean far left or even just moderately left are starting to really wake up and looking at this situation going, what's happened here? And I think a lot of people in Canada are waking up to it. And I think a lot of people in the liberal part of America need to wake up to this stuff. And Angela with the member for 5 months. Thank you so much. In Texas, you can carry a gun, I believe. I think a lot of states you can carry a gun. From what I understand, it's an open carry state in Texas, so you got to wear it like visible. I don't know if you can get a permit for concealed carry in Texas. I'd have to look into that. I know I have a friend, he's from Arizona, and he tells me all the time, no matter where you move, make sure it's constitutional carry state. All right. I'm going to look into all of that stuff. Roseanne is now based in Austin. I bet she would have you on her podcast. I would look into it. And this is the kind of thing, like being near Austin would be really beneficial because I could get the Canadian story out to more people that way. This is really something I want to look into. You're getting up there in age, so Florida might be a better choice. Nice burn. Appreciate that. Thank you so much. Joe Rogan talks about us a lot. Well, maybe he'd want to have me on so I could tell the story about what's happening. There's some really interesting stuff that's happening. Stories that are even brewing in Canada that are not quite so mainstream or even known about so much just yet, and I really want to be at the forefront of telling these stories. Yes. I'm not moving. This is our country. Take it back. Yeah. Well, so you see, the thing is, like, I'm eligible to vote in Canada no matter if I leave the country. Yeah, it's just economically this might make sense, and this could be a giant opportunity at the end of the day. So yeah, I'm looking at it in that way. Absolutely. So don't those politicians out there that are hoping that I won't be around to vote. Yeah, don't get your hopes up, because there is an absentee vote, as well as I'll be down in the States casting my votes as well. I can see you and Joe being really good. Okay, whatever. I'm sure, it would be really cool, but I gotta push to make that stuff happen. I hope you're getting sunshine where you are, folks. It is sunny here in beautiful British Columbia, which most people think of British Columbia and they just think of rain immediately. But no, British Columbia at the moment is quite sunny and is looking really nice. In Japan, when I was there, it was like 20 plus degrees every single day I get back. It's like 10 degrees the day I get back. But yeah, what is this? Don't mess with Texas pickle parks. Unlimited? I don't even know what that is. All the best, Clyde. Yeah, well, I'm gonna make this. That's it. What's the old lame expression? Life gives you lemons, make lemonade. This is that. I'm taking something that's you could see it as like, oh, this is horrible. And turning it into an opportunity, what I think is going to be a great opportunity for sure. Yeah, I mean, the inverse is to try to hang on to what I have here in British Columbia. Rents will triple for me. This is the reality of the situation. Rents here are now currently triple what I pay. So to try to hang it out, wait it out, it's gonna bite into savings, and then if you're underwater, it only lasts so long before you're just completely broke, and then what? And then it's you have to leave, but you have no nest egg to get you on your feet. So it's one of those bite the bullet, make it happen now. Any reason why you don't choose Japan? Yeah, there's a few reasons. The wife doesn't want to move necessarily to Japan. at the moment. It's about our kids' schooling. It's about a bunch of things. Yeah, I mean, without getting too personal and stuff, Japan might be a trickier option. I mean, I make all the money in the house, and I like to make it so my wife can stay home. It might be more difficult in Japan. As you know, like, I'm a technician. I do speak Japanese, but reading and writing Japanese is not something I have so fluently on my repertoire of things that I can do, my stupid human tricks. So yeah, that's not something that seems really viable at the moment, considering I do have to make sure to keep my day job. My license, my Red Seal certificate isn't really honored in the United States, but I can write the ASE, no problem. I mean, I passed the Red Seal with flying colors, no trouble. So writing the ASE will be no issue. So and from what I understand, it's not even required everywhere, but you'll obviously make more money if you're certified. So I'll get my certification when I go there, and that's the thing. Japan is awesome compared to Canada right now. Yeah, yeah, it is. But it's a challenge. It's a challenge to find work in Japan as a foreigner. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. If I move to somewhere like Florida or Texas, super easy to pick up a mechanic job just about anywhere. There's no shortage of people needing a technician. In fact, there's shortages of technicians all over the Western world. And yeah, I'll be unfortunately not being able to fill that here in Canada anymore. This is a real problem in Canada. And this is what they call the brain drain, right? A lot of people who have skills are eligible for green cards or immigration to other countries. And the more and more Canada gets expensive for people, the more it's going to be a lucrative thing for people to use those skills that they have on merit-based immigration systems, such as you'll see in the United States. You can have a house in Texas. I would think it would be more difficult to do that in Japan. Interestingly enough, in Japan, you can buy a house for really cheap. They're usually in remote areas or really run down, but there are cheap places where you can buy stuff. Anyway, let's get into some of these news stories. This one caught my eye just before I started the live stream. It really cracked me up, so I thought, why don't we check this one out together? This headline: Federal Budget 2024, Liberals fail to tackle corporate greed. Oh, that's what Jagmeet Singh had to say. Let's hear what this thing has to say here. It's just
is the opposition
insane.
reacting? The NDP leader is not happy, saying the Liberals did not go after the rich, and says his party is deciding whether to support this budget. The federal Conservative leader did not take questions from reporters after the budget was delivered, but he did have some scathing comments in the House of Commons.
Conservatives will vote against this wasteful, inflationary budget that is like a pyromaniac spraying gas on the inflationary fire that he lit. It is getting too hot and too expensive for Canadians, and that's why we need a carbon tax election to replace him with a common sense Conservative government.
Yeah, well, that's going to happen.
We're concerned about the fact that the Liberals ignored the opportunity to take on corporate greed.
They ignored a perfectly good opportunity to take on this thing that I invented. Sorry, he invented greedflation. That was the thing. He abandoned that one rather quick. Corporate greed. Just that corporate greed that's just killing all of us. That corporate greed all over the place. Actually, I got a clip that's all about corporate greed. Check out this corporate greed that Canadians are all seeing.
Canada, we're going downhill real quick. I have to show you guys something. This trucker posted his receipt to show how much he pays in carbon tax. And oh my gosh, okay.
Oh, wait.
So
I thought okay. Not corporate taxes. Oh, right. Right. Taxes. Right.
4169.93 is what he paid.
It's insane.
Can you guess how much tax he pays on top of that?
Oof, oof, oof. Yeah.
That's over $2,500 just in taxes. Well, guess who's going to have to compensate for that additional $2,500?
You.
Consumer.
You.
On everything you purchase. We're going downhill real quick.
Every one of you gets to pay that. That's who gets to pay it. Do you think each truck driver is going, oh, I guess I'm just gonna not make profits this week. I'm just gonna drive truck for free. No, they're not gonna drive truck for free. They're just gonna pass that on. And this is so ridiculous. Just the economic illiteracy that these people have in Ottawa. And this is the message we need to spread. Like, how can they be this dumb? Yet they are. Every day they show us, and Jagmeet Singh, and that perfectly good opportunity to take on that corporate greed.
That's making it harder for people to find a home. That is a major problem that makes life unaffordable. And the Liberals failed to use the opportunity they had to take on corporate greed.
To help.
That's why it's hard to find a home in Canada. It's not because we're bringing in more people than we could possibly ever house. No. That's not what it is. That's not what it is at all. Why? It's the president of Loblaws that's made, a lot more money than he made last year. The CEO of Loblaws, sorry. It's gotta be that guy. What about the CEO of Metro? Oh, don't talk about Metro, because Jagmeet Singh's brother is a lobbyist for Metro. No. Just go after that Loblaws guy. Why don't you just go after the Loblaws guy? Anyway, I digress. Let's talk about something else. I wanted to talk about my trip to Japan, and this was an interesting set of events that occurred last week. So you guys, we were in the chat last week. It was a really fun live stream, and thank you all for coming along. It was a lot of fun. So cool to have Marty up north live, side by side, without a hitch. It was just amazing how it all worked. And really appreciate everybody for coming out for that. Now, interesting little factoid. Right at the end of the stream, there was someone in the chat, and I didn't catch it, but she was also in the Discord afterwards trying to get a hold of me. And her name was Nemo Yoko, and she's a fan of the channel. And she had gotten in touch with me before and said, hey, are you doing a meetup or any of this stuff in Tokyo while you're here? It would be great to get together. Well, she got in touch with me that day because there was a giant protest happening. And she's like, hey, Clyde, if you have time, come on out to Ikebukuro, which was not that far from where I was in Shibuya when we did the live stream. And then so I was, of course, I'm coming. Sure, I'm on my way. I make my way out there, and it blew my mind. It blew my mind what I saw, because it was just insanely packed at the place. So I put this out on X this week. Massive protest against the World Health Organization pandemic treaty last week in Tokyo, Japan. Nemo Yoko invited me to attend. Check this out. So today I have with me Nemo Yoko, and she invited me to come to this protest that I didn't even know was happening.
Yeah.
There's 3,000 people here today.
So they thought it's 3,000. I think it's gonna be 5,000.
It turned out to be over 19,000 people that showed up at this event. It's hard to tell from some of this footage. There's trees in the way, there's buildings in the way, but the just crowds was immense. It was insane.
Which is really rare in Japan. So
And what's the reason? Why are people here today?
so it's anti WHO new treaty. We haven't been even review it, so we are trying to get the attention from the
No. Wow, 19,000, not 90. I think it was 19,000 was the estimate after the fact.
sorry, IHR, like
The IHR, is that the political party?
no. So it's all about the like WHO new treaty things to not to pass because they're trying to pass it without any permission, so from any countries.
So the same thing that we have Leslie Lewis that's been fighting in the House of Parliament, trying to get attention on this. There's many other people talking about this. Dr. John Campbell's been talking about this on YouTube. This is a treaty that's happening across the world, and there's not just opposition in Canada, there's not just opposition in the UK, there's opposition everywhere. And the amount of people that are on the street today and came out to the park is crazy. And the fact that you're not going to see anything about this on the mainstream media. And I mean, obviously people are very polite and they're gathering in great ways. This is incredible. So I just say that because the people who are all around us, and the crazy thing about Japan is you could be surrounded by so many people and it'll be relatively quiet. Like people are just not rowdy there. It's insane. Like you can be on the busy trains. And I saw a tweet today. It was like trains in Japan, and it was like packed in Osaka or something like that. And it was like the trains in New York. It was just fights and all this. It was really, really crazy. Just the amount of people that are here.
And then some people come.
Oh, okay. So it cut off there, and then I continued.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, try that.
So the people coming from like all over Japan, not only from Tokyo. So I think it shows how serious like Japanese are start awakening, even though like 80-90%, especially like 90% of people get injected, they now start to realizing what is wrong right now.
Incredible. And I mean, for a lot of people, it's really a loss of sovereignty that's the issue here. There's a concerted effort to remove each individual country's ability to make their own rules in this. And this is what the whole treaty is about, so that they can, from unelected bureaucratic organization, the World Health Organization, they can call the shots, and then each individual government, we saw it with Canada, how they're happy to just, we're just following the rules. We didn't make these rules, we're just going to implement them, and we're going to push other people onto this. There's obviously something going on here. And so Rimo Yoko was also live streaming at the event. Yeah, it's a completely different feel over there. I've got some other footage. I might put something together for the channel. We'll see how it plays out. This is one of the things that I wanted to bring up at the event, and this I've talked about this on the channel as well. Dr. Leslie Lewis, one of the only ones fighting against this, she was successful in her last campaign at putting it back. But like I said, it's like a zombie or a set of zombies. These bureaucracies that just keep coming, keep coming. Wow, you're really breaking up badly. Am I breaking up for anybody? Is that I think everything looks good. I got great internet here, so we'll see. Anybody else having troubles? Anybody get the chat in here? Anyone else? Any troubles? Nope. Not everyone seems fine. Everybody. You're good here. Looking at the stream condition over here, we got 732 of you in the chat room, and what we got 341 likes. Come on, guys. You could do a lot better than that. Hit that like button. It really helps out, especially after taking 3 weeks off of YouTube. It's very helpful because, well, what it does is it gets those little fingers into the algorithm and says, hey, recommend this out to more people that like this kind of content. Exactly. So get that out there. Please hit that like button. It helps out. It's free. And it is very, very helpful. So yeah, help us defibrillate the channel as we're coming back to this. Easy Joe with a $5 super chat. Hey, why are other Canadian tubers doing clickbait and 20-minute videos recently? I just asked because I don't really understand why it keeps happening. I don't know what YouTubers like, because I'm not doing that. I don't think I clickbait. Now I do enticing thumbnails, but I don't do clickbait as in, and what I define clickbait as is something that's not actually pertinent to what's in the story, like saying something that's not accurate to what's gonna be in it. I'll say, like, you know, the catchy things, but I don't do clickbait. So I hope you're not referring to me, but I'm not sure what other people are doing, especially lately, because I've been away, so I haven't been able to pay attention what other people are doing. But thank you so much, Easy Joe, for the $5 super chat. Richard Hepner with a $2 super chat. Sing a song, get a like. Get out of here. Get out of here. The old, like, do a thing for a thing. Dance monkey. You can't leave Squamish. Well, I mean, who's leaving who at this point? Yeah, it really is one of those. Clyde only does clickbait on his OnlyFans account. Yeah, okay, thanks. Appreciate that. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Yeah, no, I don't do clickbait. People have said, like, oh, what I do is clickbait. Because, like, on my live streams, I'll put my face in it. You know, and what's happening to the piano? Yutaka, maybe we'll have to talk about that. We might have to find a new home for it. Maybe yours is that home. But thank you for the $2 super chat to say that. But yeah, oh, it breaks my heart. It really does. It really does. But yeah, the whole clickbait thing. I try to do thumbnails that I think will be catchy, but I try not to say catchphrases or things like that don't have to do with the video, because that is clickbait. That's why we like you, Clyde. Well, appreciate it. Thank you. You do have to do enticing thumbnails. It is a thing, though. So you got to make your thumbnails look pretty. But there is a fine line there. Dibs on that hat, LOL. Which hat are you talking about? Which one? I love people that have a keen eye. If that piano ends up in my room, I have to start a podcast with it in the background. Is that a promise? Is that a promise? Clyde, let me buy you a beer at the Watershed. Sure. Send me an email. Yeah. It'll have to be before the summer's over. or else yeah, we'll have to find a place called the Watershed in Texas, perhaps. All right, getting on with the story, getting on with this. Okay, sorry. Easy Joe with the $2 super chat. Just to be clear, not you, bud. Oh, okay, thanks. I appreciate that. Some people do say I clickbait. I don't think I do, but I understand why people do. At the end of the day, though, it's kind of like, what would you say? It's kind of like if you got facts wrong and then you don't clarify when people say, like, you got that wrong, or, you know, stuff like that. It's, if you really, at the end of the day, all you really have is trust. And I want to address this. So, oh, what happened, chat? What'd you do? I want to address this because maybe some people have heard this and maybe some people have not heard this. But I have a philosophy, and it all stems around my career as a mechanic, because, you know, when you're a mechanic, yeah, you can get your certification, you can have years of experience and all of that stuff. But there's one thing that you have, that you earn, that when you lose, you'll never get back. And that's trust. That's trust. And it's so important not to waste it. And let me explain why. Because this is how some people waste it. And it's so crazy to me that some people will waste it like this. You know, you'll get a vehicle that comes in, and I don't know, you break a little plastic clip or something like that. And so what do? You go tell the guys at the front desk, you're like, I broke this thing, got to get a new one, you know, sorry. Or you could do the other thing, and you can like put it back broken, and then pretend like it wasn't you. And then when somebody goes, hey, was that thing broken? And you're like, no, it wasn't me. Now, it's such a dumb thing to lose your trust over. Or, you know, you're putting together something, and you over tighten it and you break it. There's so many cases where this stuff happens, and it's always little things and whatever, you know, $20 item here. Sometimes it can get a little more, or a little less, but it's a thing. And this is where your trust is built. It's built on, you know, always just being honest. Like, oh man, sorry, I busted this thing. Can we get the thing now so I can get the job done correctly? And then the job doesn't come back. It's not an issue in the future. It's taken care of right there and then. Nobody really cares at the end of the day, because everybody does this. Now, what is it at the cost of? What it is at the cost of is at the cost of that one job in the future where it wasn't you, but everything looks like it was you. Like the circumstances all point at you, and something big and catastrophic went wrong. It's those times that trust is needed the most. That trust that you built over years with people, it's then that is the most important time. All of those little things that you broke, those are not the time to lean on your trust. It's when you really need it. That's when it needs to be there. And are you going to be the guy who says, no, it wasn't me, and a transmission blew up, or an engine blew up, or a wheel fell off, something, right? And everybody looks at you and just says like, yeah, he messed it up, he's lying? Or are you gonna be that trustworthy guy who's honest and they believe you? That's what trust is really important. That's where it's really important. So yeah, when it comes to all this stuff on YouTube, just little things like clickbaiting, or not coming clean when you mess up, things like that. Man, those are the little, you know, the little things that you cracked because you over tightened it. Those are the things. But when you really need it, people won't be there for you, and that's the reality of the situation. So that's my message. That's my message to everybody. Why not to do that? Why not to be? I get why people do it though. You wanna get those clicks, man. I feel like I'm in high school ethics class. LOL. Do they still teach ethics in high school? I hope they do. I sure hope they do. But it is what it is. It is what it is. Let's move on. Move on while the moving's good. Where were we? I was talking about this bit. So this is Dr. Leslyn Lewis, and she's been talking about this. She's been fighting against this for some time. Yes, she's a doctor, and yes, she understands this stuff. And she's one of the very few that are actually out there informing people about what's actually going on with this this WHO treaty, the World Health Organization treaty that's coming in. Ravisades with a $20 super chat. Good luck, man. Have to drop. We'll catch the VOD, catch the video on demand later. Alberta is the Texas of Canada. Just saying. Cheers. No, I've gotten a lot of offers to move to Alberta. It's not that much cheaper at the end of the day. You know, holy cow, it really isn't. Just ask Marty's daughter. Holy cow, Marty is shopping around for condo for his daughter, and it's just ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Richard Hepner with a $2 super chat. Schools teach tranny theory now. Yeah, they don't teach ethics. Not at all. You know, like I got a little excited and I blew a tranny. It always meant something much different to a mechanic, but now these days, that's a totally different thing. But let's get back to this World Health Organization treaty. So something Dr. Leslyn Lewis was pointing out in this whole thing, and this is where it gets nerve-wracking for me. And I've been pushing on this because, you know, I don't think they're going to try to pull another pandemic. What I think they're going to try to do is go with, you know, climate alarmism and use that for this case. And here's the groundwork. They're laying the groundwork for this. An excerpt from an access to information request response, Canada's input to the World Health Organization Global Pandemic Accord. They were establishing appropriate governance arrangements to address and support pandemic prevention and preparedness rooted in the World Health Organization Constitution. Now, okay, consider establishing an appropriate governance arrangement or enhanced existing system to address, support, prevention, preparedness, and response for pandemics or other health emergencies rooted in the World Health Organization Constitution. Health Organization. World Health Organization. Why are they shoehorning this stuff in here? While we recognize the initial and main focus of the work will be on infectious disease, the new instrument should be inclusive and defined by all hazards approached in alignment with IHR. These are other global health threats that are currently building and or could result in a global health emergency. Example, climate change impacts. This is the Canadian government saying, you know what, we're not happy enough with giving out, giving out our national sovereignty to this World Health Organization only based on things that would be health impacts. We want to include in the pandemic verbiage, climate change. We want the climate catastrophe to be part of the World Health Organization's purview. And this is where it gets really, really scary. You may all know this guy. I always forget his name. Neil Oliver. There we go. He did this speech talking about this.
All this incessant stuff about pandemics and birds is against a backdrop of the approaching changes to the World Health Organization, the WHO Pandemic Preparedness Treaty, and the International Health Regulations, IHR, that go along with it. And even now, after years of warning, too few people have paid any, far less enough attention to just this singular quacking duck. It's worth knowing that the WHO treaty and the IHR is just a big duck. Unless WHO member states opt out, it's an opt-out scenario, you know, and if the UK is a member state and it's showing no signs whatever of opting out, because that would require our government doing something in service of the people, and that ain't going to happen. So when that WHO treaty is amended and the IHR is updated, the WHO will call the shots. so that in the future, if the WHO says lock down, for whatever reason, then we will lock down. If the WHO declares a health emergency, and that is loose, that could be a pandemic, or it could be to do with, let's say, the open inverted commas, climate crisis, close inverted commas.
Steve's Hyde, member for 8 months. Wow, been that long already. World Health Organization is trying to be the modern day mustache people. Yeah, the funny clinkety clank mustache people, for sure.
Which you might argue that there's a health component there. And so in the event of something identified by the WHO as being climate crisis, then there's a health emergency right there as far as they're concerned. And there will be no possibility of questioning and no possibility of any challenge. If they say it's a health emergency, it's a health emergency.
That's the thing. That's really where it comes down to. Now, what people need to understand is during the pandemic, like a lot of people have woken up since then, but you know, maybe some people have woken up and don't remember the details. Now, if you look through all of the things that they were, you know, everything, all the mandates that were put down on us, all the lockdown mandates, the mask mandates, the vaccine mandates, all of this was, first and foremost, it was by decree. They didn't write laws to make this. It was emergency measures, and it was executive orders in government. Richard Hughes with a $6.99 super chat. Thank you so much. If you got a message you want to say, get in the chat and do that. But I really appreciate that, Richard. Thank you. I can't remember the term that they used in Canada. It was parliamentary orders or something like that. But in justifying all of this, it was always just we're just following the experts. We're just following the experts. We're just going along with what the experts had to say. Now, this is just a cop-out. Blackface orders. This is just a cop-out. It really is. It's just doing my job, and I'm not the one giving instruction here. I'm not the one giving instruction. So, you know, just pass the buck, pass it on to somebody else. And it's, you know, it's always just some higher up or some other, you know, some other expert, yeah, in quotes, that's giving advice. Just following orders, just following orders. This is the whole concept here. But what they're doing is they're trying to pass the buck even further down the road. We're not listening to Teresa Tam anymore. We're not going to be listening. Order in council, that is the term. Thank you, Tammy. I really appreciate that. So this is what they're doing, is they're passing the buck further off into a faraway bureaucracy so that they don't have to take any liability in the decision making. They just follow what the information is. But this is the thing. The Canadian government, as Leslyn Lewis is pointing out, is encouraging these bodies to adapt more and more reasoning in order to come in and, under order in council, infringe on people's charter rights, infringe on people's fundamental God-given inalienable rights. And that's what they want to do. They want to, again, be able to pass the buck. So nobody's responsible at the end of the day. This is what's crazy about this whole thing. They want to send it down Schitt's Creek. It's sending us all down Schitt's Creek, that's for sure.
In the UK and in all of the member states that don't opt out are preparing to surrender national sovereignty to an entity funded in the main by Bill Gates.
This is why they're calling it a surrender of national sovereignty. It's because when they sign this treaty, it's going to make it so every state has to abide by the rules that are set out by this authority. That's it. You don't have a choice. You've already signed on to it, and it's binding. Now, we're going to have another pandemic in the future, and we're not going to have an experiment like we had in the last one. So in the last one, it was great because, well, it wasn't great for us, but it was great for places like Florida who said, nah, we care more about the Constitution. We care more about limiting government because that's the role of the Constitution, not limiting the people. Brian Oliver for $2 says, trust the science, right? That's all we got to do is just trust that science. But that's what they want to do. They want to push that on us. So, yeah, it's about looking back and saying, wait a second, all the people that were trusting the science and trusting the experts, and, everybody was told, Florida is going to be, Florida is just, everyone's going to break out and there's going to be the most deaths. It's going to be the most awful things happening there. They were the best off. They actually fared the best. Go figure. Amazing, right? Amazing. They fared well during this whole thing. So, the next time they don't want to have that possibility that people can be proven right. They want to make it so it's mandatory, so all these states would fall under the same thing.
What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, what could possibly go wrong?
The man that said, let's invent computer viruses so that we can sell them software to fix it.
Yeah, that was Bill Gates. That was absolutely Bill Gates. We have here on Leslie Lewis's webpage. What is the status of the pandemic treaty? The pandemic treaty is nearing the end of its negotiation and drafting phase, ultimately due to be signed in May 2024. The World Health Organization established an intergovernmental negotiating body, the INB, in December of 2021 to spearhead the negotiations, drafting and put into the proposed treaty. Since then, the INB has held several meetings to gather input and discuss proposals for the treaty. So yeah, we don't have much time left. The INB has gone over several iterations and proposals and considered member state submissions. They're currently finalizing the text for a proposed accord to be presented at the 2024 WHA meeting. Notably, the challenge in referring to the pandemic instrument as an accord and not a treaty might signal that there may be a lower threshold of national scrutiny required than in which a formal treaty process would require. A treaty would require that each member state ratify the treaty should it be legally binding and international law. The precise obligations and compliance measures to be adopted are yet to be determined. G Meister gifted 5 memberships to the channel. Wow, thanks, man. Really appreciate that. If you just got a free membership, get in there and give G Meister a thanks. Wow, appreciate that. One Fazy, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, with a $13.99 super chat. I'm late. One of your Clydesters here. Awesome. Appreciate that. Thank you so much. And better late than never. Hey, and you can always catch up on the beginning part later on after the stream. It's always up. Yeah, I always keep my live streams up. Rumor has it Lawrence Southern will be doing an what is this ankle tracker shopping live stream soon for when Bill C-63 obtains royal assent from the Governor General of Canada. Is that life in prison for her? Well, yeah, she's definitely concerned about it. I was in a meeting with her yesterday, and she was raising her concerns about that and wanting to be on one of the panels discussing it. So we'll see what happens at that event. If you're just tuning into the live stream and did I close the window? Okay, there's going to be the event, the We Unify event in June, and don't miss out on that. On June 21st in Victoria. The link I'll put in the in the description as well to make sure everybody gets that. Oh, I can't believe I closed that. So sorry about that. David gifting another 5 memberships to the channel. Thank you, David. Everybody who got a membership from David, give a big old thank you to him in the chat there. Thank you so much. Robert Barnes says these treaties are binding on the signatory states, but not on the people. Having said that, individuals' ability to fight back will be difficult at best, in my honest opinion. Yep. Yeah, it will be difficult. It'll be a lot more difficult to make it binding in the United States, that's for sure, just because of the system of governance there. But you never know what some of the states will do versus some of the other states. That's the thing. Will BC smarten up and get rid of the Libs and the NDP? I really hope so. I really hope so. All I gotta say is vote in the next election, and don't forget to encourage other people out there to vote as well. Get out there. Do your bit. Now I wanted to talk about this one. So this is Andrew Scheer, and he's got a YouTube channel. He's a YouTuber now. I don't know if he's given up on his whole day job as member of parliament in the Canadian government, and part of the cabinet, which will be the ruling cabinet in 2025. I don't think we're going to see an election any sooner than that. I really don't. Cringe. Yes, good video today. Okay, we got 2 different polar comments, one to the other. Anyway, Andrew Scheer did this video, and I want to get into a bit of it because it is an interesting one for me. Because where did I put all my stuff is all over the place here. Where in the world did I put? Anyway, let's just get into it. Yeah, he's a YouTuber now.
Over the years, I've noticed something about Justin Trudeau and how he attacks his enemies. He accuses his political enemies of the very thing that he himself is guilty of. It's like if he stole a bag of apples, he'd stand up the next day and accuse his opponents of being an apple thief.
While the Conservative leader is muzzling his own caucus and putting himself first, we'll keep putting Canadians. The Honourable.
This one is just too easy. He walked into it. He had to muzzle a member from Newfoundland who called for an end to his leadership, joining another senator who did the same.
And I went through the entire Oxford English Dictionary looking for the right word that describes that. And there just is not a word in the entire English language that accurately reflects that. There are words like hypocrisy, projecting.
Okay, I'm going to pause that for a second because it's actually a tactic. Where did I hear about that tactic? I got to find this. So there's actually and why are you doing that, chat? Come on, chat, get in here. There is actually a tactic that's used by the left of doing specifically that. I think it was the communist. See if I can't find this, because there is a specific clip that I'm thinking of, and I think I found it. Here it is.
To be in every home library. It's entitled Color, Communism, and Common Sense by Manning Johnson. Manning Johnson was a Negro, and he was also a member of the Communist Party. He joined the party as a young man because he honestly believed that the communists were trying to improve the conditions of his people. He was a dedicated communist. But after many years, Manning Johnson finally came to the realization that the communists weren't the least bit interested in improving the conditions of the Negro people. He discovered that instead they were merely planning to use his people, and these are his words, to use them as cannon fodder in a bloody revolution to destroy America.
Sound
As early
familiar?
as
Wow.
1928, the communists declared that the racial differences among our people constituted the weakest and most vulnerable point in our social fabric. By constantly probing and straining at this one spot, they calculated that eventually the cloth could be torn apart and that Americans could be divided, weakened, and perhaps even set against each other in open...
You may have heard of this. It's called critical theory. And what they discovered was at one point that American society or Western society, not so much English Western society, but like Canadian or American Western society, North America, was a different sort of atmosphere. It was a different sort of environment for people because class structure just didn't have this longevity or this long life like was found in like even in England, which is crazy. In England, the class struggle has been long understood. By the way, sorry, Richard Hepner with a $2 super chat. When Trudy exhales, he lies every time. Yeah, absolutely. Unless he's talking about him. No, even when he's talking about himself, he's lying. Unless he talks about how much he cares about himself, then he's telling the truth. But anyway, this was a thing that the Marxists couldn't figure out. They're like, why do people in North America they don't buy into this like communist crap? They're not going to buy into the class struggle. They didn't buy into that. And the thing was, there wasn't the classes like that. People always saw it as like, well, you know, getting into the class struggle, so to speak, you know, the class struggle, so to speak, was you know, a transient thing for people. You know, at one point you would be you know, lower classes, I guess, lower income, and later in life you earn more money, and then you're in a higher income bracket, and you might become a business owner. And it was, you know, for a large portion of our history, it was very easy to do that. And so people just didn't buy this, like, you know, management group versus the proletariat group. So they came up with a whole new system, and they called it, what they call it, cultural Marxism. And it was the idea of pitting racial groups against each other, cultural groups against each other, instead of using class lines, going along this other formation. And this is what he's discussing here.
In combat, we must not be led into placing the blame for the riots, the civil disorders, on the Negro people of our nation. Even those few who are promoting hatred and violence in the black communities are not themselves the cause. They're merely being used by forces far bigger than they are to promote the violent phase of the revolution in America. Hoping to avoid further violence and bloodshed, the public is to be pressured into accepting measures that will move the country gradually and legally toward communism, but without calling it that. The strategy of the proletarian revolution calls for the quiet conversion of our government into a communist regime, but under the banner of socialism. The new program of the Communist Party on this subject has this to say. The term socialism describes but the first stage of a new society that in its full development is called communism. Socialism is a transitional stage. The building of socialism is the communist revolution in America. It represents the process whereby our country can be moved gradually toward communism without the people even being aware of it. They have one and only one solution for all problems: more government, more government,
more government,
and then
more government, more government. Sound familiar?
It's total government. Total government is communism. We must not be fooled into thinking that the causes of our civil turmoil are such things as poverty, poor housing, lack of education, and similar social or economic factors. As a matter of fact, most of today's self-styled revolutionaries, black and white, come from good homes, could earn better than average incomes if they wanted to work. And in fact, they're products of some of the finest institutions of higher learning. We mustn't resort to violence either as a means of furthering political or social goals. And we must do everything humanly possible to discourage others from doing so. we must support our local police. Nothing can be quite so damaging to police morale and efficiency as converting every arrest into a trial of the policeman instead of the criminal. Now, in passing, ladies and gentlemen, you may have wondered why the Communist Party has been a staunch supporter of the drive to place a black studies curriculum into our high schools.
Okay, so this is not the clip I was looking for. It did go in some of the direction that I wanted to talk about, but in the longer version of this, he goes on to talk about how there's a written sentiment to say that what you do as a tactic is blame the other side of doing exactly what it is that you're doing. So do the thing and then blame the other side of that thing that you're doing as to create confusion. So if the other side comes back and says, no, that's you, you could say like, yeah, nice one. Okay, real clever with your accusations at me. But I said that about you because you're doing that, good sir. You know, I guess, good sir. But this is exactly what Andrew Scheer's talking about in this.
Gaslighting, lying. But what Trudeau does is more than that. In some ways, it's a blending of aspects of all those other words into one new word. So, I'm going to petition the folks at the Oxford English Dictionary and try to get them to add a new word to the English language called Trudeauing.
Trudeauing.
In the search through the English language, going back to Shakespeare and Chaucer. When you think about all the countries of the world that have added their own flavor to the English language, Canada, New Zealand, India, Australia.
Oh, Quisling was added to the dictionary. I guess Quisling was a guy who was known, I think, from the Netherlands. I can't remember exactly where, but he sold out his people. He sold out his people to the other side, and Quisling now is like synonymous with the term traitor. His last name was Quisling. So yeah, Trudeauing by blaming people for exactly what it is that you're doing. That's a thing. That's definitely something you could do. Is this Clyde do something or Clyde left something? Oh, snap. Getting some burns in the chat from Northern Perspective. I'm glad you're paying attention though. That's for sure. Quizno subs. Yeah, no. Quislings. That's the thing. Anyway, I wanted to show this clip. You can check out the larger clip. I'll leave the link in the chat here. You guys can go check out Andrew Scheer and his new career as a YouTuber. I'm sure he's got a long career ahead of him on the internet. Maybe he'll just stick to Parliament. I don't know. We'll see how that works. But I want to introduce my guest for tonight. I've been excited about having him on the show for some time. We've behind the scenes, I've chatted with him a whole bunch, and he's got a fantastic Twitter handle, and you guys might know him from some of his edits that are really just entertaining to watch, to say the least. Contemporary current events and politics, that kind of thing. Welcome to the show tonight. This is the amazing Zoltan. Welcome in, my man.
Hey, Clyde, can you hear me?
I can. I'm going to turn you down just a little bit. There we go. Yeah, you're coming in hot. Glad to finally have you on the show. Had you briefly for one of the episodes. Are you hearing me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So for everybody who doesn't know who you are, the amazing Zoltan, can you explain a little bit about what it is you do while you're hanging out in the dark in your room? Why is it so dark where you're at?
I'm in the troll hole.
Okay.
Here live. Yeah. I just make hostage videos. Trudeau hostage videos. It's kind of my main thing.
That's your thing. What brought you to doing what you're doing?
Oh, the people, I just feel so bad for them. And it's so validating to see the miserable look on their face when they watch Trudeau.
Okay, so for people who don't understand what you're talking about, okay, I got to pull one of these videos up because it's just too funny. You have a lot of really good edits, but then one thing that you also do is you show videos of Trudeau speeches and zoom ups of not Trudeau, but the people in the background who are watching. So explain a bit about it. Just give a synopsis of this.
Oh, I was watching his town hall in Clarenville, Newfoundland, and there was a fellow who just looked like he was at his wit's end. And so I started documenting these, and they just got more and more absurd.
Well, it's your handle. It's your like Twitter handle photograph is one of these characters, which I thought was just absolutely hilarious. But let's I'll pull one of these up because you seem to have a lot of time on your hands these days, and we're gonna get into that. We're going to get into what exactly has fueled that.
What else we need to do is bring home our doctors and nurses.
Oh, this one's with Pierre Poilievre. This one's different.
Now, the first and most obvious way to do that would be to get rid of all of these ridiculous vaccine mandates once and for all.
You seem to have like a focus on the crowd, and that's really like largely
200,000
Oh,
years.
here we go.
In the current incarnations of Homo sapiens.
I will sue the corrupt pharmaceutical companies and use the proceeds to pay for the treatment and recovery we need.
We're genetically identical to when we were living in small groups in caves and tribes.
We're going to ban the government from creating a central bank digital currency.
And the value of an individual was how much they mattered to their tribe.
This guy matters to his tribe. Can't you see?
And I will ban all of my ministers from any involvement in the World Economic Forum.
Okay, that's enough of that. So this is what turned me on to what you're doing. I ended up hooking up with you online, and we ended up chatting a whole bunch. Love what you're doing. Love your whole MO on life and everything. And I kind of want to showcase this in the chat. I know you get a bit stage fright, or a little bit shy as soon as you know that the camera's rolling. But I want to bring this out. Because it's a ton of fun what you're doing. And just to give everybody just a little bit of who you are, can you just tell your story? Like, what do you do now, and what were you doing before, and how did this all become a thing?
Yeah, so my background is in finance. I've been doing financial advisory work for the better part of the last decade. And now I write satire about politicians putting drugs up their butt.
Oh, you kidding me? Okay, you've been writing stuff? What have you been writing?
Yeah, so I've been doing these live threads. So anytime there's one of these awful pressers, I put in my live commentary and kind of chat about what the public really thinks these politicians are up to.
So what's really interesting about just you as a character, and I really want to show this off because what's interesting is you have a lot in common with some of the things that I have interests in, and especially when it comes to like travel and going around places. You have an interesting perspective on focus, I'd like to say. So like, for example, when I go traveling, I look at all kinds of weird stuff. And I was sharing this with you when I went to Japan. Like some of the DMs that I shared with you is just like, you know, just the countryside as we're rolling through on a train, or just like the average like neighborhoods and what they kind of look like. What I find interesting is you seem to have that perspective. Now, people might not know some of the footage that I got of the tent city in, what was it, Kelowna? Mm-hmm. So that footage came from you. Can you explain a bit about like what was your MO? Like why did you even go out there? Because it was an interesting perspective. Like most people are like, news story, get the clip and go. You were motivated differently.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk to people, find out how they got there, where they came from, where they wanted to go, what they thought about the new housing initiatives that were designed to help them. And it was a really fascinating experience.
Would you say like what you're doing is kind of like gonzo journalism, or how would you describe it? Like what's motivating what you're doing?
Well, going outside and asking people questions is actually traditional journalism.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But we live in strange times. Yeah.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, we live in strange times. What?
If I could actually make a point on
Yeah,
that,
I would love
Clyde,
you
so
to.
one of the things that I noticed in doing the story is that there actually were mainstream media outlets also reporting on it.
Oh, you like
But
did you
people
bump
don't
into them
have
while
any
you were out
trust.
there?
No, but I did find a lot of information. They were kind of covering the same things I was, talking to some of the same people. And we just live in a time, somebody pointed out to me that in the Soviet Union era, nobody watched the news because they all knew it was fake.
Well,
and we're kind of in a time like that now.
Yeah. Well, we're kind of getting there at this point. That's kind of one of the big things that even got my channel going in the first place, was just talking about things that the news either wanted to ignore, or they want to give you a different story, or they want to spin it, they want to spit shine it, they want to wrap a little bow on it and tell you it's something else. And for the most part, people would buy it for the longest time, right? Like people would just take what's served to them and just gobble it up. But people are getting a little more contentious today because, well, there's a lot of obvious reasons there. Poverty and not being able to house yourself.
Yeah, and there's just been, I think, with the pandemic, a lot of erosion in trust for the media, and also a changing of mediums altogether. Fewer people are watching traditional cable TV.
Well, yeah, cable TV, any TV in general. Like most people are just. I find most people. I don't know all people. I know Marty was telling me this week. He was saying his in-laws were visiting, and they downloaded the CTV app on his television just to like catch the news, and it was like the airport at his place for like the duration of their visit. So he's just got this like
very
1 hour cycle of news, right? Because the news is basically that they're not working so hard, and this is what actually it fascinates me. So this is a real question, actually. If the news media has this much money to throw around, they get subsidized to like the nth degree. It's crazy. And all the best they can do is like a 1 hour cycle that just gets repeated ad nauseum.
Yeah, I mean, to CTV's credit, Vassie Capella slaps hard these days.
Well,
she's doing great.
She slaps hard, but she's one pundit in like an organization of. Is she a pundit? She's an interviewer. She's a bit of both, I guess, at the same time. Everyone's a pundit these days because everyone's got an opinion. Gone are the days of anyone like not sharing their opinion and just reporting on stuff. That's me included, right?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna claim that I'm some other character, right?
Yeah, they're like assholes. Everyone has one, and they stink.
Yeah. You say that about podcasts as well. Nemo Yoko in the super chats with 320 yen. That's the first I've seen of a super chat like that. Thank you for sharing.
Sounds like a fortune,
right? It sounds like a fortune. It's about $3. Thank you for sharing the Japanese demo. You're welcome. We were talking about it earlier in the stream today. Easy Joe with a $2 super chat. Farewell all. Make mead, honey, water, and yeast. Well, thank you so much. What's your take on that? Because I was at that demonstration. Did you catch the footage that I put out there?
No.
So there's this demonstration in Japan. I was doing a live stream, and then I got a call from Nemo Yoko, and she's like, "Hey, I know we just met, but I'm in Ikebukuro. Come get on the train. There's a demonstration happening. Come check it out. And apparently there was like 800 people were expected to show up. And then that number grew to like 3,000. And after the event, it was like 19,000 people apparently were at the event. And it was all in
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was all in protest against the World Health Organization treaty, the pandemic treaty.
I imagine they protest a lot different in Japan.
Like never. Like never.
Yeah.
Most of the protests that I have when I lived there that I'd ever see, because I lived kind of close to the Russian embassy when I was there, and at the Russian embassy they would often have these like nationalist groups that would show up and they'd be like, "Give us back our islands," that are like north of Japan, that like they lost during the war or something, and that was like the gist of it. Every once in a while you'd have like. Yeah, just basically that.
Right. So no bouncy castles.
No bouncy castles.
No hot tubs.
None of that. No
honking.
No, and even at this like 19,000 group, it was relatively like chill.
Wow.
Like yeah, relatively chill. What was the one? Okay,
Very cool.
There was the one thing that I wanted to pull up because this was supposed to be. What I wanted to bring you in was this reaction to this video that you edited, and it's well, I'd love for you to preface this one. This is a senator in the House of Commons to tell the story of this.
Senator Don Plett. What a find! So this one came out just last week. It's over an hour long. In the Senate, they give the senators a lot more leeway in terms of time. So it's not like the House of Commons question period where you're restricted to kind of short sound bites. This was, an over an hour long speech chronicling all the different Liberal MP misdeeds since Trudeau has been in office. It actually only covers 2015 to 2021, I believe.
Oh, so not even the most recent ones.
No, and it's incredibly comprehensive. He's amazing.
All right, well, let's get into this because I wanted to make this like a whole reaction to this whole video.
Oh, this is great.
Now let's look for a few minutes at the Liberal Hall of Fame for 2015 to 2021. Liberal MP William Amos was caught twice on House Zoom proceedings in indecent possessions. Liberal MP Yasmin Ratanzi was wrongfully employing her sister with taxpayers' dollars and deliberately hiding this information from Canadians. Liberal MP Ramesh Sangha was removed from the...
So far, this is like kind of par for the course, just like nepotism, corruption, the usual suspects, right? This is like what you typically expect.
Correct.
Caucus in January of 2021 after he accused multiple other Liberal MPs of supporting the Khalistani movement. Liberal MP Darshan Singh Kang had to leave the Liberal caucus in 2015 over accusations of sexual harassment. Liberal MP Nicola Di Lorio didn't show up for work for a year after he announced his resignation in 2018. Then the public found out, he actually didn't resign. He still collected his salary as an MP, even if he was working full-time in a law firm in Montreal. To this day, this situation has never been clearly explained by Trudeau and the Liberals.
That's nuts. So a guy for a year just didn't show up for his job as an MP.
Yeah, and still got paid.
Still got paid.
While doing another job.
This is insane. Corruption as usual in the chat. The chat saying, yeah, it gets worse. It's crazy.
Liberal MP Raj Grewal admitted he racked up millions of dollars in debts playing casino blackjack and ended up resigning from the Liberal caucus in 2018 after the news came to light. Following an RCMP investigation, But after suddenly announcing he had paid off his 7-figure debts, he stayed on as a member of Parliament for the rest of the parliamentary session. You may recall that Mr. Grewal was already under investigation by the Federal Ethics Commissioner at the time and was later found guilty of being in violation of conflict of interest. Then there was a Liberal MP, Marwin Tabara. He was allowed to run again for the Liberal Party in 2019 election, even though detailed allegations of sexual harassment had been made against him. After being arrested in April 2020, he remained in caucus for almost 2 months because the Prime Minister's office claimed they knew nothing about it. It took a newspaper article for the Liberals to kick him out of caucus. Then former Liberal MP Frank Bayliss signed one of those juicy sole source contracts with the Liberal government during the COVID epidemic. He received $237 million. Public Health Agency figures disclose that more than 90% of the 10,000 Bayliss Medical Company ventilators it bought were never used in any clinic or any hospital. Sadly, these ethical lapses were even worse amongst cabinet ministers.
Okay, so that's just the backbenchers.
Correct.
So that's just the backbenchers and what they did. And that one was really bad because, I mean, we were all told that the ventilators were like the biggest priority. We have to have these ventilators. We need to get them. If we don't have them, people will be dying. And then they just didn't use them. They procured them. They spent all this money on them. And then that was it. They just sat there. And what was there? There was like news later that something along the lines that they wanted to sell them and they disappeared or something.
I'm not too sure. I know that a whole bunch of COVID tests disappeared, or were just completely ineffective.
Oh,
I mean, gosh, with the pandemic, I mean, it's go on forever.
Well,
I imagine.
I heard PCR testing was just a bad form of testing. Period. The chances of false positives are so high.
Yeah, and given the nature of the pandemic, I didn't love the idea of sticking plastic objects from China up my nose, to be perfectly honest with you.
Fair enough.
Let me give you a few examples. As there are many, I will go in alphabetical order. Anita Anand's husband was the recipient of one of those juicy COVID contracts.
Listen to this one, because, this one really gets me. Now, remember this. Anita Anand. She was the defense minister up until recently.
Life Labs received tens of millions of dollars of COVID contracts. They sell test kits. Anita Anand's husband, John Knowlton, is a director of Life Labs. The Life Labs division has received multiple contracts worth millions since Anand was elected to the parliament in 2019.
So this is what was accused of Pierre Poilievre's wife. This was an accusation that went out. Speaking of like what we were talking about earlier, throw out their accusations of exactly what it is that you're doing. But this was an accusation that went out when a lot of people were, just cozying up with the new leader of the Conservatives. And actually, I think this came from like some of the PPC bras. A lot of the PPC bras were sharing this one around that was the case. And I remember because what was it, Chris Sky, there it is, it's in the chat, an accusation from Chris Sky. And where did he get the information from? ChatGPT told him.
Jesus.
I'm not kidding. This is why I say, like, okay, there's BS in the news. Like, the news love to tell you BS, but watch where you get your sources from, folks. Like, some of the stuff that gets out there, like, really, ChatGPT is your source? But it turns out...
Why am I not surprised at all that Chris Guy gets his news from ChatGPT?
That's pretty ridiculous, though. That was really bad. Yep, trust the Skynet, says John Boko. Oh, man. Oh, it's pretty bad. PP's wife was definitely a director in 2020. Now, but that's... Kenzie, that's just...
Of Life Labs.
Of Life Labs? I don't know.
I don't know.
All I know is that this is legitimately an issue that was brought up before the committee. Not exactly that. Nemo Yoko with a 320 yen super chat saying, turned out 80% anti-injection demo. So 80% of the people that came out to that demo in Japan were against the vaccines.
Wow.
Okay, so
what were the other 20% doing there?
against the World Health Treaty?
Oh, okay, interesting. So they took a vote?
I don't know how they got that info. It must be like based on what groups were there and what the groups were main goals were. I'll have to touch base with Nemo Yoko later and find out exactly. Even now, ChatGPT is only trained to the end of 2023, says Dawid. But yeah, this is one of those things like ChatGPT's your news source. Come on, get out of town. Give me a break. Anyway, let's get back to this.
Navdeep Bains was industry minister and as such promised to crack down on big telcos who overcharge Canadians for internet and cell phone service. Guess what? He found a job at Rogers after leaving the government. The lobbying commissioner said she was frustrated.
This is so common, though. Like, how often do you see this kind of revolving door between lobby groups and government jobs and bureaucratic jobs and the news media? Actually, I had one reporter try to approach me a while back, and so I peeped her. I'm like, who's this reporter saying that she wants to write her book and would love to get my input for her book? And it turns out was a reporter for some of the publications, but revolving door between reporting on the government and also being a part of the government. She was the intern leader for the Green Party for a while when Elizabeth May stepped down. And then Elizabeth May came back.
Oh. Was that Emily Paul?
I can't remember who it was, but that's what she...
Was that her name?
She claimed that that's what she was. Anyway, it seemed like she was trying to make a hit piece on me because she spoke of me in one of her articles indirectly. So one of her articles, she was talking about Pierre Poilievre getting heckled by David Atkin.
Okay.
And there was like a back and forth.
Or David Aiken.
David Aiken. And David Aiken was clearly like, interrupting the whole thing. Now she said that Pierre was taking a playbook out of, or a play out of the Trump playbook. And but then she said a conservative YouTuber, what did she say? A conservative YouTuber accused Atkin of behaving like, drawing a blank on the guy's name. The guy used to heckle Trump all the time.
Oh, yeah, that guy.
Yeah, and so she says, well,
the enemy of the people.
Yeah, that guy. So she said in the article, it would be funny if it wasn't so dangerous. And then so when she approached me and she wrote me and I was like, oh, what would you playing it coy, what would you like to talk about in your book? How would you like to frame this? And she's like, oh, I'm just looking into people saying this or that. And I said, oh, when you were looking into people, was it me that you were talking about when you said this specifically? And by the way, in your article, you didn't explain why it was dangerous. Can you explain that now?
And what did she say?
Oh, silent. She ghosted me.
Wow.
We were having some good back and forth dialogue too. It was hilarious. And then I just threw that like, oh, were you referring to me when you said that the YouTuber said this and it was dangerous? Well, this is something that bothers me a lot, actually. Like, I'm serious. This bothers me a lot that news media will say stuff like, "That's dangerous," and then not define or give a reason for why a thing is dangerous. Because what are they trying to say there? Like, obviously they're trying to insinuate something, but they leave it so weird and open-ended. Like, it really bothers me.
Yeah, I made a mistake. I fell for some misinformation out there recently, Clyde.
Oh?
I'm not sure if you're familiar with the story about schools giving kids litter boxes, if they identify as cats.
No.
Oh, yeah. This was big news here where I live. A lot of parents were saying that it was happening at the school. The school district was ordering tons and tons of cat litter for these kids who, I guess, were furries. It turns out it's not true.
It turns out it's not true.
But I fell for it. No, they buy it for extra traction on snow days.
Oh, that's hilarious. Or clean up oil spills. That's another thing for kitty litter. We got a $20 super chat from Stevlin Ambrose saying, please give Alex a few bucks to buy a couple of light bulbs. Yeah, I'll have to send you a couple of bucks there, Alex.
Yeah, but I had to post an apology this morning once I figured out that I had fallen for the misinformation and disinformation to all the cat identifying kids out there.
Well, I'm glad you did. But I don't know if you caught. Did you watch Mark Dice at all?
No.
So Mark Dice did a story talking about furries today. And that was his thing, was that there was a protest at some American school of kids. Kids actually got together to protest against furries.
Right. Yeah.
Because the furry kid
in Utah.
Is that where it was?
Yeah.
So these kids, they were protesting against it, and apparently the news media was trying to bury the story. And this is what Mark Dice was talking about because he's a media analyst. And yeah, it was one of these things where the kids were like, we're tired of this. We have dress codes, and they're allowed to flaunt it, and they're a special class of people. And not only that, like, we're being harassed by these people. They're coming up and like pretending to like pee on people's legs and on their ankles and stuff. They're like, no, it's gross, it's weird. What are you doing? Get out of here. Stop it.
Yeah. Yeah, and to your point, the media is saying that this rumor about the cat litter is very dangerous to cat identifying people.
It's a dangerous rumor for cat identifying people.
Yeah.
Shut up. Get out of here.
And one of the news coverages I saw on it, a woman said that it reminded her of when people compared, same-sex marriage to people marrying an animal. But nobody's making that comparison other than this crazy woman.
Oh, she's the only one.
Yeah, nobody else is saying, oh, this is just like gay marriage, it's a slippery slope. I mean, nobody's making that comparison, only her.
I'm completely creeped out by furries. That's a thing. I think they're creepy. It's
not my thing either, Clyde.
Well, it's a fetish thing, and I think it's really weird that they're cool with kids getting into it, because yeah, I'm not new on the internet, and I've seen like some weird stuff that's on the internet, and that's one of them. That's one of those groups. So I've known people.
Tell us more, Clyde.
So I've known people. I've spoken to people online that talked about some of the communities there. There's one group, I think it was called Fur Affinity, and it's just like it's an art website where people, it's supposed to be all ages, but people can add their art to their website and then post pictures, and they post a lot of furry pictures there, and it's full of like predator people on this website. And yeah, it's a little well-known thing, but it's well known obviously with those circles, but it's
there was the whole brony thing as well, right? That was kind of an offshoot of furrying, I think.
I think that was like one of the things, but it's this it's like any of these little weird niche groups where you'll get it seems childish enough that a lot of kids will get into it, but then they get exposed to really, really weird people and weird stuff, and it's not right. Just throwing that out there.
Just to kind of circle back though to what we were talking about before, you know, the media saying that this is a dangerous rumor without acknowledging how absurd it is that we live in such a clown world that the rumor is believable.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
that seems more dangerous to me.
That's a thing. Penny D with a $2 super chat says your show is breaking up so bad in Barrie, Ontario. Oh well, I'm sorry to hear that. Anyone else in the chat? Leave a comment. Let me know how the stream's going. JK 4chan. Oh yeah, some comments about 4chan. 4chan is art now. So people who don't know internet culture, like there's some weird stuff on the internet, man. And it's not a good place for kids. Like it really is not a good place for kids. And kids get caught up in all kinds of weird stuff. And I've heard stories about like even Roblox. Do you know the video game Roblox?
No.
Oh, there's all these exposés now. It's kind of like Minecraft, but they set it up where there's a lot more like peer-to-peer stuff.
I lost.
Oh, you've lost it. Are you back? I'm showing excellent condition on this side. No, it's good in BC. Fine in Ottawa. Stream here is good.
I've lost you on audio.
You've lost my audio.
Hold on.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
can you hear me now?
I hear you.
Or
I hear myself back now.
Yeah, that was my concern. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah, no worries.
Somehow I lost you.
So we'll get that
going.
going.
Go on, Roblox.
Yeah, so there's this story about Roblox. Roblox is a video game, much like Minecraft, but more peer-to-peer stuff going on. And and there's like you can buy stuff from each other. There's like a whole economy in the game. And apparently there's some like real predatory type characters that have been going into this game because it's access to kids, right? Access to kids and what's supposed to be a friendly place. And when it's been brought up to the game developers, they largely kind of want to ignore the issue rather than address it because they'd rather skirt the controversy than actually protect the children that are accessing the game, which is really sad to hear. Is everything working now? Are you back?
I'm on a long delay. Hold on 1 second, please.
No worries. No worries.
I think so. I think so.
You're back? You're back? That might be a massive delay. Oh, we're playing this one live.
Yeah, hold on.
Okay, are you back?
How is the reverb?
Oh, I'm not hearing anything on my side. Are you hearing me? Are you good?
Are you hearing yourself twice here?
No, I'm not hearing myself twice, but are you hearing me?
Oh yeah, excellent. Yeah,
okay, perfect. All right, well, let's get back to this. We'll get back to the bit here because we kind of went on a tangent about internet culture and weird stuff that happens on the internet. I want to keep my kids away from all of that stuff. It's not right.
Yeah, no, I kind of wanted to explore that subject a little bit further.
Sure.
Because, you know, one of the things that I've had a long theory about, I call it the internet super predator. So I think that people who were attracted to criminal grooming behavior were naturally also attracted to figuring out ways to exploit the internet to those ends. And so one of the reasons that there appears to be this huge group in favor of these really kind of niche opinions, I believe, is that they've mastered the art of making their presence look larger on the internet than it actually is.
Explain that. How do you mean by that?
So anybody who would want to do something criminal, I think that the internet is obviously a great place to do that. So going back decades, when the internet was first invented, I shouldn't say invented, popularized, I think that it would have naturally attracted people who had those kind of criminal inclinations. And so those people are just way better at using the internet than you and I are, Clyde. You know, they've been using the internet to its fullest extent for the most nefarious reasons for a very long time. And so I believe that when you go on the internet, you're seeing, 1,000 bots representing the opinion perhaps of just one person. My little tinfoil hack conspiracy.
Oh, so that they're able to get bots in there, and is that what you're saying? Like they can.
That's what I think.
They can fuel their own opinion. Like I've heard of sock accounts. For people who aren't familiar with what a sock account is, it's like on Twitter or whatever. You'll make a second account, and they call it a sock account because it's like your sock puppet. All the things that you're afraid to say from your account, you'll switch accounts and then go over and me beak off to people and say that thing from your other account. I think, what was it? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she got busted saying stuff from her own account that she thought she was tweeting from her sock account at one point, so everybody figured out what her sock account was.
Yeah, she's special.
Yeah, she's special.
But, I mean,
you're talking about bots, like bot armies and stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how this would work. I'm a total Luddite, so I have no idea how they would do this sort of thing, but it makes sense just in terms of why the online presence for people with these views just seems completely uncommensurate with the views that people have in the real world.
Well, what do you think is? Oh man, that's like a chicken or egg sort of conversation at this point, right? Like, what comes first? The criminality, the shitty behavior, or the environment to have that shitty behavior?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, I don't think that the theory is that far-fetched. I mean, if you look at Jessica Simpson, it's a famous or infamous character, in the Lower Mainland. That was the fellow.
Oh,
well, I shouldn't say the fella.
Yaniv.
I don't want to get myself in trouble.
Jonathan Yaniv.
Yeah.
Formerly known as.
That was the stunning and brave woman who sued multiple estheticians for not waxing her balls.
I don't think that was for attention, though. I really don't think that was for the attention. I think that was the like a grift. Like, oh, okay, so I can sue people and go through the court system and get like 15 grand every time.
Well, she ended up having to pay, funnily enough. And there's another element to this story that not a lot of people are aware of. She had very deeply harbored anger against the Indian community.
Oh, really?
As expressed in several. Yeah, so she was specifically targeting Indian estheticians, and
wow,
she was very anti-immigration. Yeah, she's kind of a PPC bro herself. Ironically.
Oh man, all those intersectionalities, all those things that people's opinions intersect. That's hilarious. That well, I mean, it's not. I mean, it's ipso facto, obviously.
Well, I feel terrible for the victim.
Absolutely,
because
for people who don't know what was actually going on. So, it was this individual who claimed to be a female and would go to waxing parlors, like little independent waxing parlors, not even like big conglomerate ones, and requested a Brazilian, like a ball wax, like I'm going bowling, you know what I mean, like that kind of thing. So I needed to be slick, and then would pursue to sue if this individual was denied a service based on.
Yeah, she would take them to this human rights court. It was just kind of a kangaroo court where anything goes, and it was really like a remarkable rare victory for common sense. the fact that she wasn't able to get any money out of these people and ended up having to pay for their defense.
Well, that's good because, well, there was that one comedian. I can't remember his name at this moment. Actually, there was a few comedians that got taken to court. There was one who made a joke about a handicapped kid. I think it was in Quebec, and it was this well-known handicapped kid who was famous, and he made a joke at a stand-up thing, and then somebody filed a complaint based on that, and on the kid's behalf. Like, I don't even think it was for the kid. Like, the kid didn't do it. I think it was on the kid's behalf, and the guy ended up having to pay $15,000, the comedian, for making a joke.
Wow.
And it wasn't like punching down either. It was like Mike Ward. Mike Ward is someone put in the chat. Yeah, it was a disabled kid. Montreal comedian who made jokes about disabled youth. But the kid was like, I mean, he was like held up on a pedestal. He did all these things. Got to meet with Celine Dion, like all these things, and then he cracks a joke about it, and next thing you know, he's got to pay 15 grand, and he's been silenced. Wow. There was another case in Vancouver where a comedian was at a show, and he's like a heckling comedian, and at the show, oh, I've lost you for a second there. Hopefully we get you back in short order. Sometimes this happens. Just the luck of the draw with the connection. Connection got fuzzy and then it just dropped. Uh-oh. Hopefully it comes back. Maybe, maybe not. Anyway, I'll tell the story to everybody else while we're waiting, because he's frozen on the other end there. So the story goes, this comedian, he goes to a stand-up comedy show, his own comedy show. Just continue the story while you wait. Yeah, that's it. So a gay female couple, lesbian female couple, are at the front, and some heckling ensues. So there's some back and forth between the comedian and this group. Apparently they were sucking face at the at the thing, and next thing you know, he cracks a couple of jokes. They get offended, and they're all butthurt over the whole thing. And what do you know? They go after him with the Human Rights Tribunal. I think at one point they called the cops, and the cops were like, "Yeah, it's a comedy show. What do you want me to do?" And that was that. But then no, Human Rights Tribunal, that comes up, and that becomes a thing. Again, awarded $15,000, and yeah, that was it. Brian Oliver with a $2 super chat. They used bots to buy PS5, I'm sure, with the DIS in, with the DIS in. I don't know. I don't know enough about the ins and outs of like internet hackery and stuff, and what people do with that. Let's see if no, we're not back yet. I'm gonna have to do a few things. Just give me one. Bear with me a second. I'm gonna get Alex back in here as soon as I can. This should work. And if that doesn't work, I don't know what to say. I've got Alex back. Alex, you're back.
I'm back?
Yeah, you're back.
Oh, great.
All right.
What did I miss? And we're back.
Yeah. So we were just talking about that comedy show. So basically, long story short, comedian has a couple of lesbians in the front row. They're sucking face in his show, during his show. And so he cracks some jokes. They get offended. There's a little back and forth. They walk out. They're apparently I read a bit into the story. One of the women came back like the next day to file a complaint at the comedy shop, and they're just like, yeah, whatever. Like, it's a comedy show. Get over it, woman. I guess she called the cops. And the cops were basically the same thing. But then she found her newfound friend, the Human Rights Tribunal, where she could exact her revenge for the misdeeds of the comedian who made fun of the lesbian sucking face at the comedy show.
Yeah, I mean, that's their right to suck face. It's the comedian's right to make fun of them.
Absolutely.
I don't see why
it's
one
fair
group's
game.
rights should be.
No, exactly.
Yeah, just because you're a lesbian doesn't mean you're not allowed to be made fun of.
Well, apparently in Canada, that's what the Human Rights Tribunal is all about. And this is what's really so. Annette in the chat saying preview of C63, because this is what I'm afraid of. Is
it
kangaroo
depends on the nature of the
courts.
joke. I mean, it's all contextual, right? I mean, some things are in bad humor, so I just kind of want to.
Well, okay. Well, what's a $15,000 lesbian joke?
Oh, I don't want to tell it. I don't have $15,000.
There you go. I don't think that there's anything that you could say that should be illegal to the point where you'd have to pay $1,500 to a tribunal. Now, there are things like free speech has its limits, obviously. If you say that you're going to do something violent towards another person, that's not allowed. You're not allowed to utter threats at somebody. You're not allowed to promise threats at somebody. You're not allowed to do this. But, there's clear statutes in that direction. And they define these things. Like, they define the difference between beating around the bush and making a clear statement, you know what I mean? And that's not what this is about. That's not what a lot of these tribunals are about. They're about taking gray area and then gray area rules and then putting their own little spin on it that doesn't have any precedent. There's no precedence in these cases. They're just case by case. And I don't know. What's your take?
And it's weaponizing identity politics and the victim mentality.
It totally is.
And also it's creating a cottage industry out of the victim mentality as well.
Which is quite dangerous, which is really dangerous. Because at the end of the day, what is it? I mean, again, it's another case of regime uncertainty. In the I think it's the Rothbardian sense, the Mises School of Economics. They talk about regime uncertainty, and it's this idea that if you create an environment that is dangerous for entrepreneurs, then they won't go there. They just won't go there. They'll see that governing system is just out of bounds. It's too risky. The chances of losing it all are just too high, so just you don't go.
And that's the problem with these expanding rights, is that there's no precedent for them. And as Jordan Peterson puts so wisely, he says, one person's rights is another person's responsibility. So if you're an esthetician and somebody walks in and says, I'm a woman, wax my balls, I mean, who's the victim here? It's not exactly clear. I mean, I would argue that everybody's a victim in that situation, but it just doesn't really... There's just no precedent for these new rights.
Well, new rights,
and so,
but why are these rights guaranteed? This is the thing that I really feel strongly about this one. So a lot of people will say certain things are rights that aren't rights, that I don't believe are rights. Now, you have your inalienable rights, God-given rights, the right to your labor, the right to your person, yourself. These are fundamental rights that everybody agrees upon. But there's these new rights, these positive rights, where something is afforded to you in the course of these rights, right? It's not something that is just innate and somebody has to aggress against you in order to relinquish your right. if you're left completely alone, you're well within all of your rights, right? Nobody's infringed upon you, or nobody's stolen something from you, right? Or damaged your property. Now these other rights, and this is I've been arguing the dangers of this for a lot of years, even before I started doing a platform. But in Canada, when we started saying that healthcare is a right, that became dangerous territory. Because just like you said, at what point when somebody says, I want services, do you have the right to refuse and say, for whatever reason you have, whether other people think it's a legitimate reason or not, it shouldn't be up to debate at that point, because you're not a servant, right? You can't conscript somebody to involuntary servitude.
Right.
So now these positive rights become infringing rights upon other people's negative rights, inalienable rights. And this is a dangerous territory, I think, in my opinion. And you know, it all starts with like innocuous, you know, things that people think, right? They think, you know, wouldn't it be great if everybody was able to have healthcare? But what they say is not that. They say it should be a right. Everybody should get healthcare, instead of everybody, you know, it would be great if everybody could get healthcare. Those are different concepts, right? So
right.
If it's a right, well then what other, you know, at what point does the conflict happen? And when the conflict happens, how do we resolve that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one. In Canada, it's all equal now, right? Because just nobody gets healthcare.
Well, that's the inevitability of it, I would argue. And I think we're kind of seeing that come to fruition, you know. And today I did a video and I was talking about it because Americans are starting to criticize Canada, and I'm talking the left. The left is starting to criticize Canada, and you know, well-known people like Bill Maher, even the
Joe Rogan.
Yeah, the Jimmy Dore show was criticizing. It wasn't Jimmy Dore, but it was a stand-in for him. And one of the interesting things that he mentioned at the very beginning of that segment, and I think I have it. I have it right here. I want to play just the beginning part because I found this very interesting and very telling, to say the least, about this sort of mentality.
Oh, Canada. All right. So Canada is having a lot of trouble, honestly. It's a little hard to make out some of it in regards to, as I said, I'm working on an article about their current euthanasia policies. But I don't want to beat up on them. They're very often a punching bag for people who want to make an argument against socialized healthcare.
That sentiment right there. That right there. I don't want to beat up on them because that might lead to a good argument against my advocacy for socialized medicine, right? And it's like, and the argument that I gave forward in my video this morning was, no, actually, Canada is probably the best example of socialized medicine because we were the most faithful to socialism in our socialized medicine. And we did so by making it illegal to access private medical. There is no private option as there is in the UK or any of the other OECD countries that offer universal medical to their subjects or citizen, whatever it happens to be. But yeah, no, Canada's been the most faithful to it, and for it to collapse faster than everybody else is only a testament to how bad that system is.
Well, it's very central to our identity as well as Canadians. I don't know if you recall, years and years ago, CBC did a top 100 greatest Canadians, and they put it to a nationwide vote. And Tommy Douglas is widely recognized as the inventor of socialized healthcare, which he's not actually, but he was kind of the one that brought it to Canada. He was declared Canada's greatest person.
Number one.
You know, and number one. Yeah.
For my whole life, I've always heard it. Anytime I'd give any inclining that somewhere else is better, especially if you say America. If you say America is better for any reason, this knee-jerk reaction. Well, it would be a knee-jerk reaction from Canadians to say, "Yeah, we have universal healthcare."
Yep. Yeah.
But look at it today.
Yeah, it's an untouchable subject in many places in Canada. Socialized healthcare.
Well, I think it's becoming a touchable subject as people are slowly waiting for their, for their treatment that's not coming.
Yeah, I mean, the elephant in the room as well, of course, is the mandates in certain provinces. I know it's particularly bad in BC. I think a lot of that has to do with the rather interventionist approach that the provincial government has taken on mandates from frontline healthcare workers.
But yeah, there's still, and that was an argument that I just heard from John Carpe yesterday, and he was talking about the mandates, and he says, Canada largely still is under restriction from the mandates, and if you think that they've been lifted, ask a healthcare worker in British Columbia, because those mandates are still in effect. So yeah, we're still under mandates in Canada.
Yeah, I actually had to go to the emergency room in Canada this is about 18 months ago. So it was during kind of the peak of COVID. It was during, I believe, the Omicron wave.
Oh yeah.
It feels like it was 20 years ago. And it was one of the most bizarre experiences of my entire life. I had broken my arm. And so I went to the emergency room in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and the first 10 questions that they asked me were related to COVID and the vaccine. And, my arm was hanging off. I said, "Sir, when are you vaccinated?" I said, "Yes." And they said, "Well, when was your last vaccine?" I said, "I don't know." They said, "Have you been out of the country in the last 5 days?" "No." My arm is hanging off. I was bleeding all over this plexiglass cube, that these people had to sit in while they asked me all these COVID questions. They said, "And are you here for anything COVID related?" "No, my arm is hanging off. But yes, I also have the sniffles."
I came for this. Oh, that's awful. That's really ridiculous.
Oh, it was just the strangest experience. Then they said, "Sir, can you put a mask on?" And my arm was bent at a 45-degree angle. I said, "That's going to be really difficult for me right now."
Yeah.
I only have use of one arm. And yeah, it was just a surreal experience. I must say though, they were great. Generally speaking, I don't know. I don't have a lot of hospital experiences, but the food at QE2 is phenomenal. And yeah, the healthcare workers are nice enough. But yeah, it was a strange experience. They lost track of me because they got my first name and middle name mixed up, and yeah, and then I believe that I got another vaccine while I awaited surgery because there was no provincial record showing that I had been vaccinated in BC.
Oh, brutal.
Yeah, it was just a altogether bizarre experience. Going to an emergency room during COVID in Canada. I'm sure some people that watch your show could give stories as well.
Oh, I'm sure they could. We got a member for 7 months, Ice Windale, 33, says, "Great live tonight, guys. Much appreciated." Amazing. Steve's Hyde with a $5 super chat says, "My arm is falling off, and yep, you guessed it, COVID did it."
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, it was like those memes, where the guy goes into the hospital with an arrow sticking in his head, and they're like, "Oh, are you here for COVID-19?" So it was like that meme brought to life.
Well, I mean, those memes started because we heard reports about death certificates.
Yeah.
Guy getting impaled by a steering wheel, but he, that COVID got him before the accident.
Yeah, and this is anecdotal, Clyde, but working in finance, you just see a lot of human records. And during the pandemic, I actually live in a retirement community. I mean, it's totally anecdotal, but I didn't notice any excess deaths in my community during COVID at all. It was it was really strange to watch one reality on the news and then live another reality every day.
I want to show this clip because this is the clip of Real Time with Bill Maher, and he's talking about the kind of the downfall of Canada. We can get into this, and then we'll talk about this. Try this here.
And finally, new rule: if we want to save our country, we should follow the advice good liberals have given for decades and learn from other countries, especially those beacons of progressivism like Canada, England, and Scandinavia. And I agree we should, as long as we're honest about the lessons we're learning, and as long as we're up to date on the current data, such as the unemployment rate in the US is 3.8%, and in Canada it's 6.1%. And of the 15 North American cities with the worst air pollution, 14 are in Canada. I'm not citing these stats because I have it out for Canada. I love Canada and its people and always have. But I hate zombie lies. Zombie lies. That's when things change, but what people say about them doesn't. Yes, for decades, places like Vancouver and Amsterdam and Stockholm seemed idyllic because everything was free and all the energy we needed was produced by riding a bike to your job at the windmill.
So I just like
I'm employing some critical thinking here, Clyde. Can we go back a little bit to that map of the air pollution?
I don't know if I buy that. I don't know if I buy that statistic.
No.
That was an interesting.
I mean, one of the city markers appears to be like Equalia at Nunavut. You know, I can't imagine that the air pollution is that, unless there's still some after effects from the Chernobyl disaster.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. So US one city, and then it shows all these places. Looks like most of those are like, you know, northern Alberta. They're talking about like Fort Mac, that kind of area.
I don't know. I don't know if I buy that one. Seems like a bit of a stretch. Not that I'm the last person on earth to, you know, apologize for the Canadian government, but
no. But looking at that statistic though, the 6.1% unemployment, which which I always find is kind of a bunk number, because what happens is people they go through unemployment, they get their unemployment check, and they're a statistic, and then once that runs out, either they get a job or they don't, but they're no longer a statistic at the end of that. You know what I mean?
Right. Talking about the participation rate, as they call it.
That's it. And it's really hard to measure the participation rate because there are a lot of people who just opt out.
Right. If we're talking economics, can we talk about halal mortgages?
We can get into that. Okay. So no, this is a good one to segue into. The budget just dropped just the other day, and there's all kinds of wild stuff that was introduced in that budget, and one of them was the idea that we might start giving halal mortgages to the Muslim population, which I think was a pandering scheme, to say the least. But what's your take on it?
Well, I did some research on it. I spent all morning actually trying to figure out what the hell a halal mortgage was.
Oh, okay.
And by the end of the day, I was probably more confused than when I started. So, as I understand it, they already exist.
Yes, they do.
And they're already being given out. There's very few lenders. I think there's only 3 in the whole country that will do them. And basically what they do is, through very expensive and cumbersome ways, they remove interest payments, but they really just reconfigure it as something called a profit payment in order to, you know, remain faithful to a very devout form of Islam. Nobody in their right mind would get one, you know, unless it was for very specific religious reasons.
Yeah, exactly.
The interest rate is almost double. So it's just a strange thing for the Canadian government to be dipping their toes into. It's utterly bizarre.
So it's an interesting topic because I brought this up. Turkey had some serious problems recently because of a particular president that they got. in their country. And he was a devout Muslim, and he wanted to make sure that Muslims were, abiding by certain aspects of the Sharia law, and the lending practices was part of that. But he did it at a national scale, talking like central bank level, right? I'm not kidding. And and here's the thing. So
but Clyde, if I can just finish for 1 second, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because first of all, if somebody wants to pay twice as much to get a halal mortgage because they believe that strongly in their religion, by all means, I mean, that's their right, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
But I still don't understand what it is. So you can actually go online, you can find the halal mortgage rate, and the mortgage rate is around 11%. But if the rate isn't representing the cost of borrowing, which is interest, what is it representing? I still don't really fully know. I haven't wrapped my head around it myself.
So the idea behind it is the concept of usury. So back in the day, all the Abrahamic faiths had laws against usury. The only break in this is the fact that Islam, the way the book was written, it was written after all the other Abrahamic faiths. So they took a lot of the rules that are in other Abrahamic faiths, and this might sound like blasphemy, and some Muslims might not like that I'm saying this, but when they wrote it, when Muhammad wrote it, he wrote it all as rules instead of a bunch of books that are amalgamated together, and a lot of them are just recommendations. There are a lot of just recommendations in the traditional Torah or even in the Bible. There are some like thou shall nots and that, but it wasn't written out completely as a set of like, boom, there's the rule, that's it. It's very codified in that way. So usury is codified in the Quran, not like it is in the Old Testament or the New Testament, to say the least. Now, there is talks of usury and all of that, but it's always loosely translated, and a lot of times, in Jewish communities or in Christian communities that have practiced usury laws throughout the ages, they've done so a lot of times by they'll make exceptions, like if it's out group you're allowed, or usuries only if it's like this much and above percentage, and then they have some arbitrary rate that's okay. And you'll have some people that by committee will announce what the rate ought to be. But this is all before people understood what usury was. But one thing that people understood after these rules were codified and they started making exceptions to them was that if you have strict usury laws, economic activity almost comes to a halt. Like, it's really bad to have these usury laws. And then later on, it was Ludwig von Mises, actually, who's the founder of Austrian economics, wrote the Human Action and the Theory of Money and Credit, all of this stuff. And in the Theory of Money and Credit, he came up with an actually really good explainer for what interest rates are and how to explain how usury is not usury, unless you're in a situation where I mean, even in that situation, it's like, people don't want to lend to somebody, but somebody will at a higher risk, and usually that comes with a bigger prize at the end for the investor. Now, where money and credit comes from is the whole missing thing in the price mechanism, because you got a supply and demand curve. The demand, where people couldn't understand, because people always want money, they always want to get money. What wasn't understood was the time preference. I want to have something now and be able to consume it now or use it now, and not buy it later, and not have to save up in the immediate. Because if I buy a piece of capital, for example, buy a piece of capital, I'll be able to produce more and pay off that loan faster than I would have been able to save up for it in the first place. Therefore, the economic incentive for everybody involved is better Like the outcome is better societally, and the outcome is better for the borrower and the lender in this relationship if they're able to have that facilitated. So that created a supply and demand curve based on the time preference and the supply of liquidity in the marketplace. So like anybody who has money that they can lend out, typically interest rates are based on how much liquidity is available compared to how many people want to borrow it. This all gets upset when you bring central banks in that are allowed to distribute fiat currency at their will and set the interest rates. So a true market economy, you'd only have low interest rates when too many people have savings. That's the reality of the situation. And this is why they call it stagflation. It was the idea that you have an inflationary environment with stagnant economy. So essentially low savings rates, but the central bank lowers the interest rate, causing a stagnant economy but high inflation.
Yeah, I mean, like with these halal mortgages, I think you touched on something very important, is that it's the relationship between the lender and the borrower. And the halal mortgage seems to err on the side of advantaging the lender versus the borrower in several different capacities. I just want to abstract this entirely from the religious element, because I have the utmost respect for people who, believe what they believe. That's
do you?
Totally their right.
It's all you.
But on the surface, these halal mortgages do appear sort of exploitative. And so I can kind of see why the government might want to get involved, but they haven't done a very good job of explaining how they want to get involved coherently. And this is why there's so much confusion and upset about it. And actually, a Bloc Québécois member of parliament in question period this morning asked a Liberal MP if it might be possible that halal mortgages are in the new budget because a prominent Muslim organization just threatened to take away $680,000 of lobbying money from the Liberals. And she kind of alluded that it was due to their disagreement with some other Liberal policies, which I would assume would be their ambivalence towards the situation in Israel and Gaza. And so this seems to be sort of a strange political optic olive branch to try to reclaim some of that lobbying money and some of that favor with
it's
probably a fairly strange member of the Muslim community. Correct.
Well, it straight up is pandering because, like you said, the halal mortgages are available in Canada. It's not like they're not available.
They are.
And
I imagine they're very rare.
Oh, I'm sure they are, because a lot of Muslims aren't. I mean, obviously you'll have your devout, strict, Orthodox Muslims, but most people will be like, yeah, okay, I'll do what I can. 20% interest? Nah, I ain't doing that.
Well, I'll take the 5% over the 10%.
Yeah, ain't doing that. Sorry.
I don't care what you call it.
Yeah. And essentially all they're doing is like they're it's funny money, right? It's a way of charging interest without calling it interest. You're calling it service charges. You're calling it this or that. It's a financial institution that's happy to do the little dance to make you feel comfortable with your religious fervor. That's my opinion on that matter.
But are we expecting bankers to be experts in Islam? I mean, I just don't know. I don't really understand what angle they're going with here. If they're looking to provide more mortgages to people who can't get a traditional mortgage, I mean, it's just not coherently explained what the plan here is.
Well, it's really simple. It literally is like Wolf of Wall Street kind of guy going, so you don't want the mortgage, but if I call it something other than interest, you'll have the more. Okay, 10%.
Well, and it's just like the credit rating proposal in the budget, where we're going to be offering, or rent payments are going to be counting towards credit scores, but there's no details on how this will be implemented or how it would make it easier for an individual to buy a home. I mean, they seem to just throw out these policies with no thinking, just a fly-by-night approach. And it's one of the reasons we're in the clown world that we're in here in Canada.
Yeah, it's crazy.
These ideas are not well conceived.
No, not at all. I got Trish Prue in the super chats for $5 says, tonight is good. Zoltan followed me on X, and I get to watch him and be entertained / informed. Appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Very sweet
for that. Yeah. I always get really heated when it comes to economics issues. I did I spent a lot of time reading economics because I got what was it, a bunch of years ago, I got really interested in Ron Paul and what he was doing, and he said you need to read Ludwig von Mises, and then that just opened up a whole can of worms, and I ended up for about 10 years just reading nothing but economics.
Oh, economics is fascinating.
It is.
It's great. Yeah, it's a great field of study for sure. I wish that our government knew more about it.
Well, no, what I think is they like to jump on any sort of economic policy or economic theory that enables them to do the things that they wanted to do in the first place. And I think that's where John Maynard Keynes came in, and he has this theory that like deficit spending is a good thing, and the macro economy works differently than the micro economy, so we're gonna change all our tactics and all of that stuff. And it's a bunch of malarkey, and it's been proven wrong time and time again, but politicians will always go to it and give it credulity, right?
Well, you were talking earlier about projection. So a clip came out, it was actually a couple of days ago, but it kind of hit the Twitter dashboard today of Chrystia Freeland. Somebody was asking her, well, what do you say to the critics of your budget? And she said, well, they're financially illiterate. In a stunning case of projection.
Wow.
And then she said it was an unassailable, nonpartisan fact that Canada had the most responsible fiscal policies in the G7.
That's I don't even want to say.
So I really don't think we're dealing with financially illiterate people here. And if we are, then they're just in an altered state of reality.
Well, I try to give people too much credit. I try to give people too much benefit of the doubt that maybe they're just following bad economic policy. No, they're just idiots. Holy cow. Holy cow, is she an idiot? They're just economically illiterate. Wow. But at the same time, I think guys like Klaus Schwab are completely economically illiterate. The same guy who, in interviews has a bust of Lenin behind him.
Right.
Yeah.
And these people are ideologically possessed.
It really is that. It really is that. And it's sad the extent they're willing to sacrifice the rest of us all for it. It reminds me of that Lord Farquaad from Shrek, when he gets up and he says, we may lose many of you, but that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make.
Yeah, absolutely. They're throwing us all under the bus to engage continuously in this socialist experiment that just seems to get worse and worse every day. And the answer is never less government. It's always more government. And it's disastrous. And it's sad. If there's one positive thing that's come out of this, it's that it's uniting other parts of the country you never thought would be united. It's a remarkable accidental feat, but remarkable nonetheless, that Trudeau has brought the interests of Quebec and Alberta into alignment.
How so? Where?
The Bloc Québécois is now carrying water for the NDP by challenging this halal mortgage, for instance. And so you're seeing Bloc members and Conservative members in question period rah-rahing each other.
They're challenging?
Which never used to happen.
They're challenging the...
Yeah,
Why?
Well, because they're asking questions, right? Which is not typical of the Bloc Québécois. And actually, they're in French, of course, they're now saying a lot, we represent Quebecers and Canadians, because there's a high probability, Clyde, that they will be the official party of opposition after the next election, which is a bizarre thought.
That is a bizarre thought. But I don't know. It makes me wonder, like, why that? of all the things. Like, I get it.
It's just one example. It's the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And people in Quebec and Alberta just detest Justin Trudeau. And so he's kind of managed, I mean, even during the convoy, you saw Quebec flags and Alberta flags being flown in the same place. That's kind of unprecedented in Canadian history. He's just so dislikable that he's actually uniting the country in ways that we never thought was possible.
It's true, but he's skillful in continuing to divide people. Like, he's very skillful at it. And circumstance is also part of it too. Like, we saw Muslims, Christians, and Jews all coming together, and secular people on the idea of parental rights, and that all got fizzled away with the conflict in Israel, and which isn't our conflict, but there's a lot of people that are really upset about it on either side of it, and people that are taking stances on it that you're like, wait, why what's your angle there?
The conflict in Israel has divided people on the left and the right in really interesting ways. I mean, it's a bizarre situation. I think we were talking about this the other night, Clyde, about how, the same thing can be said of Trump supporters. You have this bizarre combination of hardline, right-wing, traditionalist Christians rah-rahing for Trump with frat boys.
Yeah.
Who love the idea that he's been divorced 3 times and that he slept with a lady of the night and
So I get a big kick out of Trump. Because
me too.
I'm not your traditional conservative, right? I'm pretty like libertarian. I'm open to whatever people have their lifestyles. I don't care. Just don't bother me. That's my whole concept on life, my philosophy. You do you, don't bother other people with it. That's it. Like, as long as nobody's got a problem with each other, we're good. But Trump is, like, he's got the Bible Belt behind him, and he had a gay marriage at his Mar-a-Lago like just the other week, and for me, I'm like, awesome, whatever, who cares, man, who cares?
Well, because you remember how much the Bible thumpers hated Bill Clinton, just over the Monica Lewinsky thing, which just pales in comparison to the sexual escapades that Donald Trump's been involved in. I mean, and of course, there's all kinds of rumors about other things that Bill Clinton have done, and maybe some of those are true. But and then on the left,
I'm going to address that, because always Bill Clinton's escapades, they're always, like, for lack of a better word, rapey. Like, that's and you hear about Trump and he's just like, yeah, he might be crude, but everything's voluntary. Like, everything he's ever done seems to be like on the okay, on that wavelength. You may not like it, but it's like, well, consenting adults, man. That's my line. Consenting adults.
But we've ended up with these two political sides that, like, I'm not really sure how they make any sense as a whole. Right? I mean, you've got the blue-haired, pro 2S LGBTQIA plus people with the Palestinian protesters on one side. I can't imagine that they have too much in common. And then on the other side, you've got the Bible thumpers and the kids. It's just really strange. I'm not sure that if you actually had these two groups sit down amongst each other, that they would agree on very much.
Well, it's weird. It's weird because I get along with so many people on so many different wavelengths, right? Like, I can go to Vancouver, and as long as nobody's like, I want to, like, infringe on your rights, I'm cool with everybody. Whatever, who cares? And as long as, like, people are staying away from kids doing weird stuff. But at the same time, I can hang out with conservative Christian people, and I love it. I love hanging out with them,
and Muslims
and Jews, Muslims, Jews, whatever. Yeah, I'm cool with all of it, as long as everybody's cool with everybody, because that's the, at the end of the day, that's the only thing that upsets
politics has very much become about pop culture and about liking one person versus another, right? It's less principled than it used to be, I think.
Well, let me tell you a weird story, okay? So here's a strange tale. I had a friend that I met on, of all the websites, Chat Roulette. You remember that website, Chat Roulette?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Okay, so chat
yeah.
roulette.
That's cool.
Yeah, right. It was kind of a cool website. You could meet just rando people. It was hilarious.
Oh yeah,
But there was a lot of deviance on it, and holy cow, was there a lot. But
yeah.
anyway, uh, scrolling through, meet this guy from the Midwest, and I'm like, hey, what's up? Oh, hey, how you doing? I'm having a beer. He's like, I'm having a beer too. And we ended up just chatting a whole bunch, talked about stuff. It was like right around 2011, I want to say, right? And just talking about this and that, some politics, some just life stuff. Anyway, got his email, ended up like becoming friends. We would chat like on weekends and stuff. We'd just like, bored. Hey, you bored too? I'm having a beer. Let's have a chat. Okay. We were friends for a while and we did that chat for a long time. And then all of a sudden he just like kind of disappeared. And I'm like,
Right.
the hell happened to him? Like, where'd he go? And so I found him and on Facebook or something like that. And I'm like, yo, why'd you unfriend me? That's messed up. And he's like, I didn't know what to say to you. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, lots changed in my life. We haven't talked in a while, but he came out as gay.
Right.
Right? He came out as gay. And it was a big thing in his life, right? Like, it didn't matter in my life, but it was a big thing in his life, and he apparently lost a lot of friends over the whole ordeal, and that sucks. That totally blows. But I was like, I don't care. Like, you're still the same dude. Like, whatever. I don't care. You never had something for me. He was like, no. I'm like, then what difference does it make? Like, it makes zero difference to me. So I'm like, yeah, no big deal. So he has a cry and he's all like, I can't believe it. You're so awesome, man. We're going to be best friends forever and shit. Like that kind of thing. Right. So, then we continued our friendship and we ended up chatting here and there. Hey, you around? You want to have a beer and chat? That kind of thing. Total bro. Super cool guy. Into cars, into guns, into like that kind of stuff. I'm like, oh, cool. Anyway, the Trump thing happens.
Right.
And he doesn't like Trump.
Right.
And, slowly more and more, I watched like the Trump derangement syndrome start to seep in. Dude, there was a point he unfriended me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very polarizing figure, of course, Donald Trump. I mean, what better example? Somebody lit themselves on fire outside of the courthouse this morning.
Okay, well, we're not gonna save that one. I wanna let this sink in. The guy had people disown him because of his thing in his life, and I was like the guy that was like, cool, who cares? I'm fine with you,
right.
But because I like Trump, he was just like not having it. Sorry, we got to end the friendship here. Like that blew me away. That freaking blew me away. And I still miss the guy. He was just a cool dude. Like, so if you're watching the show, man, I'm not saying you by name, but like if you're watching the show, hit me up. Like, get over this TDS thing. It's not even an issue for me. Like, friendship's so much more important than that. It's crazy.
But it's an issue to them, and yeah, it is what it is. I mean, it's strange. It's strange because politics didn't used to be that way at all.
No.
I mean, no.
I mean, you could
family.
You could like Trudeau, and I'd probably think less of you.
Yeah. Yeah, we're big hypocrites. We wouldn't tolerate that.
Oh, I wouldn't.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm joking.
I wouldn't unfriend somebody, but I wouldn't let it go.
No, I would certainly think less of them.
Yeah, I probably would myself. But yeah, okay, you were saying somebody self-immolation over Trump. What was the story? What happened there?
Oh, so the story, I believe, is still coming out. But yeah, there was somebody in front of the courthouse where the Trump trial is happening. They self-immolated, and it was just captured by accident by a CNN reporter. I made the joke to you this morning, yeah, where it's she accidentally did real news while trying to do fake news.
Well, trying to do fake news, yeah.
Which it's no laughing matter. I mean, the person I believe is in critical care. It's very sad, very tragic.
There's no surviving that, is there?
I don't know. I'm no expert on self-immolation. It's just so tragic, and it's indicative of the mental health crisis that we have here in the West for sure. But apparently there was a manifesto, and there's been pictures posted of him wearing, Bernie Sanders shirts. So the widely held belief, whether it's accurate or not, is that he was probably somebody on the fringe far left.
That's crazy.
But, yeah, and in the manifesto, supposedly the one that was written, it was published in Substack this morning.
Oh, good. He didn't do it in paper.
No, there was a paper version as well.
Oh, sorry.
There was a paper version too. That he threw out apparently before he self-immolated. And in the Substack article, he said that the motive was he had a conspiracy theory. I don't know, maybe it's a real theory. Who the hell knows? That cryptocurrency is this $1 trillion Ponzi scheme. I don't know why that would motivate somebody to do such a thing, but that's what he decided to write about with his last.
What about the giant Ponzi scheme of real dollars? That didn't concern you?
I don't really have a strong opinion on cryptocurrency. But it
neither
seems like
do
a
I.
strange thing to, be so motivated over. But yeah, very, very, very sad and tragic. And it's the second one we've seen just recently in the news. There was also, of course, the pro-Palestinian protester who did something very similar.
Really?
Yeah, just recently.
I think a lot of people, like, they're sick for other reasons. They latch onto these causes and then make that their thing. You know what I mean?
I do.
Well, not only sick people, but like there are people, we jokingly call it the pro wrestler circuit.
Yeah.
So the pro wrestler circuit, for people who are watching, is the people that show up at protests, but they're at every protest. Doesn't matter what the cause, they pick a side and then they're there. And they're these characters. They frequent these things.
And actually, I got that from Karima, because I asked Karima one day, well, why are you so interested in attending these protests? She says, I'm a big wrestling fan. It reminds me of going to wrestling. A lot of kind of similar themes. You have people dressing up in costumes. You have people bringing signs. You have people doing chants. It's a very similar experience, I imagine, to going to a pro wrestling event.
Oh, I bet. It's something else. And I was kind of warning people about that, because there's these the Axe the Tax rallies that are taking place. And I thought it was great that when they plan to launch those, they plan them at the borders of the provinces instead of the major cities where a lot of these characters might end up going. Because a lot of times, a lot of people will show up to a protest, but then it's these pro wrestlers that show up and then they're the face of everything. And you're just basically showing up and then giving them a big crowd behind them so that the news media can show that and go, look at all the support this pro wrestler's got. And it's never about their message because they're just there for the attention, right?
Well, I believe tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken, I saw Drea Humphrey post there's going to be a Walk for Jesus event, a pro-Palestine event, and 420 all occurring tomorrow at the Vancouver Art Gallery at the same time.
Well, I'm glad I'm not.
So that'll be a very interesting
glad I'm staying
pro
home.
wrestling event to observe. It's a strange mix of characters, but I mean, I think that there's a certain level of healthiness to it as well, right? It provides a catharsis to people. I was in Athens, Greece. It's very common for people, anarchists and communists, to meet in the middle of the square and, throw rocks at each other and Molotov cocktails every once in a while. And it's an ancient civilization. It goes back thousands of years. And there's a certain level of catharsis to, meeting your political foe face to face. As long as it's peaceful, of course.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. Well, we don't get to have that. We get to have this like mockery in Canada where it's elected officials, they say, and then they go to question period, and it really just feels like passive aggressive and and nothing ever gets accomplished, and it really is just kind of frustrating for the average viewer, right?
Oh, it's hilarious now. It's the most entertaining thing on TV. Question period. I mean, the Liberals are in full meltdown mode. It looks like Randy Boissonneau is going to have like 3 aneurysms every question period. I mean, there's a part of me that absolutely loves it. As much as it is political theater, it is very funny.
Well, and you add on top of that social media, and you can tell that every one of them is just stepping up and saying their thing that they're later going to put on social media. It's not about actually like asking specifically a question or answering specifically a question. It's a grandstand, and it's for later. It's not for then.
Yeah, it's just a lot of screaming now. It's very strange times to be living in, because they've been in power for 8 years, but they seem to have adopted this posture of being absolutely outraged by everything that's happening in the country, as if they haven't been running it for the better part of the last decade.
As if they haven't been running it. Oh, that's ain't that the fact? This whole like about face on housing, and I mean, what else would you call it other than an about face? They didn't talk about housing. They didn't want to talk about housing until the Conservatives started talking about housing. And then as soon as it became a popular issue, it's like, well, I love the newest one. The newest one cracks me up. It's, well, when it comes to housing, there's a lot of talk on the other side of the aisle, and we're actually doing something. It's like, hold on a second.
Right.
They're the opposition. They only have the choice to talk. They can't do anything from their position. You've had 9 years. What are you doing?
And what the Liberals are doing cannot be coherently explained. You know, they'll say, oh, we're going to make rent count towards your credit score. Well, how is that going to help with housing affordability?
Well, I heard a lot of people argue that would actually make things a lot worse, because a lot of people that are down and out are probably missing rent, and that would go against their credit score. And then that would cause it worse situations when they end up having to go, look for loans and all this other issues that they could run down the road into. So yeah, it could exacerbate the situation.
It's also something that you say often. It's the soft bigotry of low expectations. It suggests that people who rent aren't smart enough to go and get a cash secured credit card to rebuild credit if they have poor credit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, you're basically assuming that the people who are renting are on a certain level of financial illiteracy. And how would this be implemented? Is somebody going to be calling Equifax every first of the month and saying, yeah, Bill and Sally paid their rent on time? It's just...
Oh, well,
it doesn't make any sense.
You know what we could do? We can make a bureaucary around it, and we should have them all report. And yeah, that might be up the... Seriously though, like that's the kind of thing that the Liberals would do, and it would cost us an exorbitant amount of money and benefit nobody.
It's incredibly frustrating to watch, because the one government that has never been able to do anything competently keeps giving itself a mandate to try doing more things.
Wow. I don't think that's ever been put better.
Just stop doing things. I think that we would all be better off if they started doing less things, but for some reason they think that what we really want is for them to do more, even though their approval ratings are in the toilet.
Yeah, just stop.
It's a stunning display of delusion.
That's unreal. Anyway, on that note, because we've been going for a few hours now, we went over by almost an hour. You started opening up, and I was like, all right, we're going longer.
Roll with it.
I got Alex to loosen up. This is how we do. No, I'm glad you loosened up, because I know how camera shy you can get. The first time I had you on, it was just like, as soon as you knew it was recording, you became a robot. No, you loosened up totally good on this one and made for a great conversation.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's always a great conversation.
Absolutely. For everybody who doesn't know where you are, can you give links or?
Oh, yeah. I'm on X, and I've got a small YouTube channel. You can find a lot of the hostage taking videos on there. You know, Trudeau making people miserable. I have a lot of fun making them. Although I do get sick of hearing his voice, just like everybody else. So
Very,
not always a way
very easy to find. Amazing Zoltan. Pretty. I don't know how you secured that name, because it sounds like something that it would already been taken, but you have it, and it works out.
Yeah, the Vegas fortune telling machine. You know, you think that would already be copyrighted for sure.
Absolutely, that's what I thought. But yeah, no, you got it. So go check it out. The Amazing Zoltan on Twitter and also on YouTube. Great content, good stuff. Always a great conversation, and you have a lot of free time, so you're gonna be putting out a lot of content.
Yeah, I certainly do.
All right, everybody, thanks for coming out, and thank you so much. As always, we'll see you in the next one. We're gonna be getting things going again, because it's been kind of slow lately. Looking forward to it. Everybody, keep on trucking.
Thank you.